when three non-African Americans are blocking a sidewalk in a predominantly white neighborhood? Are they rolled up? Does somebody roll up on them and say,
"Listen"?
Violin.
I never worked in.
No, here's what happens.
I never worked in that neighborhood.
Here's what happens. Here's what
I'm
happens.
just trying to tell you. I know,
But
I didn't understand. I didn't see it myself.
But here's what happens.
I'm not saying it doesn't exist.
Okay, that's what.
But I never worked there.
Here's what happens. I do have a small violin, and my paralegal just walked in, and I can have her go in my office and get it. So I have one. Hello. Thank you for joining us for another episode of For a Brother's Ear. I'm so thrilled to have these four gentlemen seated here today because the energy that we have experienced that you haven't seen before they came on air was unbelievable. They are such conversationalists. I can't wait for you to hear them. They're going to share some of their own experiences and maybe you're going to learn something. So just sit back and relax and let's listen to what the brothers have to say. So, gentlemen, thank you for joining me this afternoon. Again, I just want to extend a deep gratitude that I have in you guys taking the time out on Sunday to come out and talk with us about some issues that probably affect all of us. The issues are going to be diverse. Your responses are whatever they are, and maybe somebody listening can learn something. So, because the energy, like I said, was so kind of off the charts before we came on air, I want to really start with kind of what we ended off the air conversation with is black man's health. So what happens is we see in our community, and just feel free to correct me if I'm wrong and jump right in, but in our community, in terms of black men, health is an issue. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Okay. And it's something that we, I think, should take responsibility for, and we should take a look at for the obvious reason. You know, we've got not only ourselves, but we may have family, people who rely on us and care about us, and we want to stay healthy. Mm-hmm. So the question becomes, is it a perception that black men's health is a problem? Is that an accurate perception?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
When you grow up, I grew up with a lot of men in my family, and as a young kid, you kind of get the impression that to complain, women complain. We don't complain. You just suffer through it. You just work through it. Mm-hmm. And as you get older, and hopefully your exposure and your thoughts mature, you realize, no, you have to change, get out of that mindset. And so for me, it was to be more practical in terms of maintenance, right? Try to see the doctor regularly, and hopefully, because you're going to get something's going to come up. Hopefully, whatever does show itself, you're able to catch it in the time to where you can deal with it with minimal cost.
But you're saying this as a man of, how old are you now?
I'm 51.
Okay, so this is Thomas. Thomas, you're 51 years old.
Yeah.
And so you're saying this with a particular perspective.
Yeah, certainly.
But was that something that was a thought?
It evolved.
It evolved. Okay. Okay.
So so I've been athletic all my life, right? So when I was playing sports coming up, one, I would hide injuries. I had to hide the fact to my mother that I was playing football. She didn't want me to play football. So I couldn't let her see that I got hurt, or she'd know I'm playing football. Then later, in high school, you get hurt. Well, if you're hurt, you can't practice. If you can't practice, you're not going to get in the game. So you work through it. So these are things that just kind of agreed with the ethos that I was kind of, born and cultivated with.
Is that universal? Do you think that's is that particular to black men, or was that universal to men in general?
I think it's a masculinity.
Okay,
I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
You're just told. I think it stems from you have to provide, and there's no excuses. You have to provide.
Well, Well, my name is Kumar.
How old are you, Kamal?
I am 50 years old.
Okay.
I'm 50 years old. Wow. Sounds amazing. Kind of wow. 50 years old. All right. But I agree, but I disagree because, you know, even at 50, and I can only speak for myself. You know, you still tend to have that scare. You like, oh, I don't want to go to the doctor. I'm good. I'll be all right. I could make it. Oh man, this like we just finished talking about. Oh, my shoulder hurts. Let me do 5 more sets. Not saying that your shoulder hurts from being sore from a workout, but it could be something, disligament, something, you know, misfigured, something came loose, anything. But even as your health, you know, your stomach hurts, your chest hurts. I ate too much, or I ate the wrong thing, or I drank too much. It could be any one of those things, or it could be gas. We don't never look at it like that. We always figure we all right, like you said, we all right. We push through. So when it comes for the time for us to go to the doctor, we kind of get scared because now we go to the doctor and the doctor says, "Well, I need you to come back and see me," and your first thought is, why you want me to come back and see you? Something is wrong. And 9 times, or I'm gonna say even 7, 8 times out of 10, you know, it might be your blood pressure might be high, your sugar might be low or high, you know, your numbers might be different. You know what I mean? So you might have to go check certain things. It's not always the worst, but we always think it's the worst. And coming from, like, we grew up with our parents and our uncles and them, we kind of understand, like, they pushed through. They never went to the doctor, not that we know of. But our grandmothers and our aunts and them made them go to the doctor. We just didn't see it, you know. So now, coming as we get of age, like, yeah, we have our women friends and our family, you know, close to us. But yo, did you go do this yet? As a 50-year-old man, yes, I have yet to go do a colonoscopy. It is not the number one thing on my mind nor my agenda. Not even gonna lie to you. You know what I mean? In my mind, no. Listen,
Thomas is saying you should get that.
of course, you're not the only person that can. But in my mind, as a grown black man, I'd be all right. But I know mentally, of course, you know, my mind is telling me, you know better than this. My heart says, you know better than this, and of course I do. You know, and of course, you know, it's just a matter of, I don't want you to put me to sleep and take advantage of me.
That's rationalization. We do that,
right?
But so that was my mindset, right? But again, the evolution process, you know, you're always growing, you're always learning. So as I started getting older, or maturing, let's say, people would say, "Hey, when was the last time?" And not the women in my family or people like, "Did you get what was the results of your checkup?" I didn't go. But you don't get, you know, and then you get into other circles and they mention, okay, so this is something I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
Then, you know, I love my primary care physician, black woman, and just, you know, because I can't BS her. Like, she could be at my house for Thanksgiving, right? You just change the face. She should be there. Right. And so she knows, like, the food that we like to eat, you know, and she's, no, you have to come in. So every year, January 11th, that's my standing appointment. And I just like, okay, doc, just
go ahead.
Right, just let's go do it. And but you know that it I didn't wake up one day and flip the light and said, hey, this. You realize, and then you start learning your family. You know, we have this in the family on this side, we have that on the family. So my thing is, and then another thing, when I had kids late, when my son came, then the thought of not being there to raise him and influence. So then it was like, so now you get on this
create
stuff.
a different purpose.
God forbid something comes up. Hopefully you have enough time to deal with it with minimal impact to those that depend on you. So that was my experience.
Hi, I'm Marlon.
How old are you, Marlon?
46 right now.
Okay.
So if I could kind of bridge between both of you. So I think the push through is necessary, and I also think that, like, that mentality of push through is necessary, but we have to sort of balance it back out in terms of putting our health as the number one priority. For example, if we were all sick we would not be here today.
True.
Everything stops in the world when your health is not in order. That is a fact. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care whatever is going on in your life. The world stops when we're not healthy. So, and the sad part about it is that we're not taught these things when we're younger, because we're supposed to have this knowledge as kids.
But from where?
Right.
Where do we get that from, if that's the case?
Well, the only thing that we can do at this point is to teach the younger generation
Okay.
to say that, listen, I know you're 16, you're not invincible, right? the mistakes you make today will impact you in your 30s, in your 40s, in your 50s, right? And so, I think it should be our number one priority as men, because when we are not healthy, the world stops. It really does.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I want to piggyback right on that. My name is Jeff. I'm 48 years old, and I'm a huge conspiracy theorist. I'm going to hold it down today. But I'm a huge conspiracy theorist. And I feel like, there's a lot of things like, from kindergarten to 12th grade, even in college. I went to 2 colleges, graduated both, associates, bachelors, and I never was taught anything that had to do with like, I had health class, and you have science, but it wasn't like, I'm not an educator, it's a big Department of Education or Board of Ed, whatever we're going to call it, and soon there might be no name under this administration, but I won't get into politics right now.
It's coming.
My conspiracy of like what they teach the youth, like from, I've seen it on TV, people like, instead of a class talking about what happened in Greece or somewhere else that I'm never going to go through, whatever, how come I don't know nothing about balancing a checkbook? How come I don't know about, they should have like, an African American class like about health, like, okay, diabetes, in the South they call it the sugar. We call it diabetes, pre-diabetics, it's diabetics, and I'm in that universe right now. So it's forced me to do a lot of research. So at my age, I never researched it before because it wasn't my business. But now that I'm in there, I don't take insulin or anything. I'm at the DO instead of DR, the DO, where I'm trying to do it holistically and, other stuff, you know what I'm saying? But it's like, there's so much information and misinformation that's out there. And, I'm not a doctor, or at all. It's just, it's making sense to me. It might be wrong, but it's making sense that insulin, metformin, different drugs, that they're not addressing, they're the Band-Aid. They're helping you go from day to day and that you'll be stuck on it forever and ever, but it's not going to what is the reason, and I'm getting into this pancreas thing that's behind the stomach, and the fact that, some other thing, again, conspiracy theorists, that there's some germ or something invisible to us that's eating up certain things, that's making it hard for insulin to go into the bloodstream and thus causing the spikes. That it's not about how much sugar you take. You can eat donuts, it's not about that. That's the thing that we've been told, and that doctors have been told for decades or centuries. But it's not true, so,
well, what
or I'm just saying, it sounds like it's not true. Because like I said, I'm not a doctor, I'm not giving medical advice, but this new information I'm getting makes sense.
Well,
dealing with the cause.
I gotcha. So let's talk about like old information. Like what happens when we were, because you guys are men of a certain age, so your parents, your parents may still be alive, they may not still be alive. So for example, I'm a woman of a certain age, but I lost my mother when I was...
What age is that, 19?
No.
That makes us 12.
So I lost my mother when I was 15. She was 47 years old.
Wow.
So what happens is, and she smoked cigarettes, and she died of a heart attack in her sleep. My father, I was 30 when he died. He was 65. He also died of a heart attack. So the question I have is, at what point do we say, okay, you know what, it stops with me. Like, I have to take care of me.
Yeah.
But
And
there's genetics too.
Well, always genetics.
Yours is
Always.
both sides.
But here's the interesting thing about it. I've got 5 siblings. 4 are still living. Right? So what happens in that scenario, I'm not on any high blood pressure medication. You probably get that I work out.
Yeah, I could see it from your arm.
If you guys don't know, she looks like a miniature Angela Bassett.
She looks great.
Okay,
She looks
there
great.
you go.
So what happens is, when I say it starts with me, I've got to take care of my health. So what am I doing? I'm not interested in conspiracy theories. There may be 1,000 of them.
Yeah.
There may be 1,000 of them, but what am I doing for me? Like, how do I get the numbers right?
Yeah.
Right? How do I not avoid, you go for annual checkups? Do you? I don't know. Do you guys
Yeah,
go
I
for
do.
annual checkups?
Well, they say, I guess the regular physicians say it's once a year if you don't have nothing crazy going on.
Right.
So I'm one of those, I got to go 3 or 4 months because of the diabetes,
Okay.
diabetic. So I'm in this thing where I got
Okay.
to go.
Right.
But before that, and it was told to us, if nothing's wrong, yearly physical.
Uh-huh.
You don't need to come back in 6 months.
Okay.
If you're good, your doctor will tell you, see you next year.
Okay.
And that's just what it was.
All right. So that's like going to the dentist.
Yep.
You go to the
Same
dentist,
thing.
what,
Well, I
once
got-
a year?
But what happens
Twice
when
a
next year comes? This is my thing. So next year comes, like Marlon said, like people at one point in time, we didn't have nobody. They didn't teach us
Exactly.
to tell us, like, yo, you got to take care of this and that of your health
Right.
and go to the doctor. We learn from experience because our parents died, our uncles died, our aunts died.
Right.
We seen what happens. Okay, health took over. Bad health took over.
Right.
So now we at a stage in our life, like, how do we pass this on? We know what we started doing, our era, coming into our 40s and 50s and where we at now.
Okay.
We started working out more. This era, we started getting into the gym more. Henceforth, our kids come up,
Okay.
and our kids learn to be in the gym. They either want to play sports. Yeah, don't get me wrong, some of them run the streets, but 9 times out of 10, they outside looking very thin and slim at right now, weak. But it's not just because
You're
of.
talking at this age?
I'm talking about right now at this
Oh, the
age,
kids.
coming
Okay.
from
Okay.
us.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because we all see the difference. Like, we coming from our parents. Our parents might have been heavier. Our parents might have been a little chubbier, a little more invested in diabetes and things of that nature. But now we see that, so now we know, like, okay, I'm not going to eat that, or I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to live my life like that. Let me go to the gym more. Our kids see that, they started going to the gym more. So when you say, like, how do we show them? This is how we show them. We show them through experience. We show them through the things that we do.
action.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but to make sure that we stay that way, like he's like Thomas said, we gotta mature. We have to make sure that we stay in tune with ourselves and say, okay, let me go to the doctor. Let me go get this colonoscophy.
Right,
Right. Get this out the way, do these kind of things. Because if we don't, then the people that follow us are going to do the same thing.
Right. Right.
I agree with him, but what I wanted to say, which I said earlier, I think it was before we were filming, is that like what to do for us, like you're saying, but we're living in a system of things.
Okay.
So when I was growing up, even I told him I lived locally, and in the street we played 2-hand touch on granite, on
That's right.
concrete. I have not seen that, and I have a job where I'm in a car in the morning, in the night, whatever. I don't see it, and I haven't seen it for years. And it was a daily thing in the 70s, 80s,
90s.
and 90s.
And what do you attribute that to?
Culture. It's the smartphones, and that I told
Yeah.
you. And I saw a thing, about one of the creators of the whole iPhone, the smartphone thing, and it seems like what was made to bring us all together has actually had the bring us more apart situation.
Right.
Like, you could be, you go to a lounge, you go to, I was in the clubs when you had to walk to a young lady, whatever, and after have a pen on you, or I'll go borrow it, you had it pre-written, until I'll be back to go get a pen. I have a 50 shredded one, with my name and number on it, but I can't do that in front of you, because
Right.
I'm a player, so I
Right.
walk away, hold on, I'm going to go find a pen.
Right.
And then I come back, but now we have smartphones, now we
Right.
do this.
Yeah.
Now I can't even approach you because you have this thing in your hand. I don't know if I'm interrupting you.
Okay.
All this anxiety, don't
Yeah.
watch your tablet, your whatever.
Right.
So it brings people. So you could have all of us sitting here, and you could have interrupted us. We're vocal people, but you could have had another set in here, all on our phones, waiting for you to come out, not saying a word to each other.
Right,
So
right.
physically we're here, but mentally we're not.
Right,
And
right.
that is something that we made it to 40, 50s, and it came in the tail end of our lives.
Yeah.
But the ones our children were trying to teach all this stuff to, they're in it.
They're
So
in
it's
it.
hard.
They're
You're
in it.
fighting a
They're in
system.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
sense?
balance, because the cell phone has its use, right? But also you could use it for destructive purposes as well. So I just think it boils back down to balance. If you're sitting on your phone and you're just watching all these I don't know, Instagram, TikTok, when just people cracking jokes all day, then you're not going to learn much.
Right.
But if you are watching something, let's say you're watching a video about self-love, self-care, which is, I think, is what Renee is alluding to. How do we practice self-love, self-care? How do we put ourselves first? Or are we just going to, push through all the time? You know what I'm saying? And I think both are necessary. You know what I'm saying? I think we got to push through as men, but we also got to take care of ourselves as well, And nobody's going to do it for us but ourselves.
So I think
know?
all of that encompasses when I say the evolution, right? Because so when we were kids, you had the food triangle. This is even that's changed. So, but
Now, for those who don't know, when you say the food triangle,
Yeah, we got to start.
Yeah, you gotta let them know. They don't know about the
gotta
food
break
triangle,
down
Thomas.
the
yeah, you got
Who's on the bottom?
So it was a triangle partitioned in groups of food: carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vegetables. Right. And so they said based on where that group lied in the triangle, that was the priority, or you needed more of that stuff. Right. Dairy was on there.
Yeah.
I don't even think dairy's on there.
Not anymore.
It's considered, part of that.
Okay.
Stuff now. But the point is, actually, to your point, yours as well, is you're going to get information coming at you. And to your point with the cell phone, it comes faster now, nonstop.
Much faster.
The point is, you have to evolve and you have to determine what your priorities are and how you're going to execute them, right? In the midst of all of that data. For me, that moment was preparing for when my son came, my first child came. I knew, okay, I got to be around for that. And so now, some of the stuff that I used to do, I rode, well, I still ride, but I used to ride sport bikes, right?
Now, when you say sport bikes,
Oh.
let's be clear.
Motorcycle.
Motorcycle.
I had a ninjas, right? Yeah, when
Thinking
my
twice
son-
about that now.
Huh?
You're thinking twice about
Holy
that
God,
now.
I wake up sometimes in the middle of sleep, that could have went,
Could have been me.
Yeah. So we all have those triggers or those things that will give you the aha moment, the epiphany, so to speak, and it's up to us to recognize those and act on them, right? And so I'd like to tell you now, I don't, I ride now.
Casually.
Casual.
Well, no, I'm on it.
Mm.
Well, it was nice. I'd have been on it, but not a sport bike,
Right.
But I ride much more responsible, right? Because my kid is I got both kids are in college now, and
Got to be around.
So let me ask you a question, Thomas.
yeah,
What if you didn't have both kids?
that's the point.
That's a
So
good
you're speaking to
question.
the point. Where I'm
But
saying.
but then you still matured and you still got older.
Yeah, but it may look differently, right? It may not have. I may not have had that intensity of okay, all right, that's no good. Maybe I can, cause I smoke cigars now, right? That ain't good. But who knows? You know what I mean? I cut back on the whiskey. Right, without the kids and all that, maybe the cigars and the whiskey go full steam ahead. You know what I mean? for me, it was I got to be able to make it to their games. They both play college sports.
Nice.
I got to make it to the games. I got to be able to pick up the phone when they call. For my son, you know, he has a nice car. I got to pick up the phone just in case one of these cops have him on the side of the road. Right? So these are the things, like, this is important to me, and this helps my decision-making process. And so what I'm saying is, as you evolve, that picture will become, hopefully, it'll become clearer to each unique individual, and they will start to maneuver accordingly. And so for me, health was important. So I lost over 100. I'm up to about 140 pounds.
Oh wow!
So doing my annuals, right? My doctor said, "Okay, look, Tom. I tell you, she's a black woman. I love her. Right? So she said, "Look, Tom, how many 300-pound 70-year-olds you see walking around?" And that was again one of those moments, right? So I had the surgery, right? Surgery got me about 70 pounds, and then she hooked me up with a nutritionist. And between the nutritionist and the gym, you know, I lost another 65 pounds
Nice.
over the last 3-4 years. No, so I didn't stay for the praise. What I'm saying is, it's you individually we'll have those aha moments,
Right.
and it's up to us to exercise. Okay, we have to do something. Her telling me, you know, there's not too many big guys walking around here at the age that you're not too far from. Then it becomes, do I want to put all this stuff on my kids and I'm not here? Okay, all right, Doc, what's the plan? And
So do you relate this to your children? Like, you know, as we go through these changes,
right?
when do we relay this to our kids? When do we relay this to the kids?
So
Even
it's
better.
funny. So it's funny, right? So again, because my kids play division, they play college ball. Like that concern, like the healthy eating stuff, just circumstance kind of takes care of that, right? My son is on the field 5:30 every morning. I'd love to say, hey, it's because you got it. No, his coach tells him to be on the field, and if he's not on the field, it's a problem, right? Same thing with my daughter. She plays basketball. So that aspect, what I focus on with my son primarily is his ability to make decisions and not overly influenced by his emotions, right? With my daughter, it's primarily watch your mouth, right? Be respectful, blah, blah, blah. But with my son, the approach is different.
I got
So
you.
that's what I have to impart on them, just because of their uniqueness, is that their circumstances, the health is kind of just baked into where they are in their life right now, right? They have to be healthy, or what they're doing right now won't look the way it looks for them right now.
So go ahead, Mom.
No,
Sorry.
I guess I'm. And my thought is, fundamentally, our health has to be number one, because if something happens to us, our entire life stops. Everything stops. Everything.
Facts. That's true.
Right? And so to put that secondary, and I mean, I wish I knew this 20 years ago, 30 years ago, right? But to put it secondary, I think, is a misstep, right? Because it impacts every aspects of our life, right?
Right. Everything, like you said, everything stops.
revolves
Because here's
around
the
that.
other thing. You're talking about, you know, wishing you had known something, let's say 20, 30 years ago. But let's project forward. 20 years from now,
Yeah.
you're going to be 70-something-year-old men, right? You're going to have different health issues, right? Health issues that have to deal maybe even with relationship and intimacy and those kinds of real factors, right?
That's a fact. They do this, and they do that on purpose
But
too.
here's the thing. Here's the thing about drugs. That kind of what Kamar was saying, which is fear. I mean, some guys may be fearful of taking drugs.
True.
That's true.
What'd you
Or
say?
embarrassed.
Or embarrassed.
Yeah.
Right? So if we're projecting 20 years, how do you want, like, when your primary care physician says, do you see many 70-year-old men, 300 pounds walking
That
around?
was
You don't.
powerful.
So the question is, what do I need to do now so that I look like this at age 70 something?
Yeah.
So you know what I do?
Yeah.
I'm at 50, as of right now, maybe for a few years now. So I have a son. He just turned 21. He's a big guy. You know, Renee knows him. People know him. He's a big guy. He's taller than all of us in here. And every time I see him, it's a competition. Dad, how much you lift today? Huh? I ain't lifting like 5 months. What you talking about? But so it became a point where I was like, you know what? Let me just go to the gym so I can just lift 100 pounds and be like, one, keep my health up. Two, make sure my health is up to keep up with him. And three, whenever he decides that we want to go in the gym with me, we can go do that together. And I got a little one following. So that's where I'm at with it. Because it has become fun. Fun competition. You know what I mean? That's how I feel I could teach the kids.
So I got a stupid story. So my son's football player. He plays defensive end.
Who does he play for? What school?
He's at Stony Brook.
Okay.
Nice.
So
And he plays what sport?
football.
Football. Okay.
So you know, we've always been in the gym working out together. He's been playing football since he was 3 years old. Right? So I remember the time when I noticed that, okay, stuff is changing, right? So he would always struggle to keep up with me working out, right? But I think it was his senior year in high school. We're in the gym playing basketball, and you know he's starting to get some. Well, no, he is well on the way of his shoulders broadening and pulling out. So I said, okay, you know what? I'm gonna give him some South Jamaica basketball. So I'm gonna back him down, take my shoulder, throw it in the middle of his chest, and just give him a little something to let him know, yeah, this is what it is, right? So I do that, I get the ball, and I take my shoulder and I ram it as hard as I can, and back him down into his chest, and he didn't even move. And my shoulder. So I pull back out, pass the ball, and he didn't even realize what took place. And when we got home, so at the time I was married, so as we're driving home, I tell my then wife, hey, run the water and put the
Get it ready. Get it ready.
run the water. So now we played ball for about 2 hours. We lift weights for about an hour and a half. So as I'm pulling onto the block, the kids are outside tossing the football. I don't even get the car in the driveway. He jumps out and goes and starts playing football. I said, yeah.
You're like, you done, man.
He was like, nah, Dad, I'll see you later. I said, okay. It's one of those, again, those moments in your life where you're like, yeah, okay, because I'm going to be in this tub for about an hour. Right? And so,
Because that's part of taking care of yourself, too, is knowing to not do things.
Your limits.
Yeah.
You know your limits, yes.
Some people
Know
don't
your
know
limits.
that.
Right.
And I'm telling you, I hear that, because the most I went up to was 350, and then she remembers when I was skinny.
I sure do.
So I was skinny my whole life, and then, I played football, and I lifted weights and everything, and feeling myself, and then all of a sudden I wanted to be Van Damme size, and I surpassed him, you know what I'm saying? And then I stopped maybe like 8 years ago. I haven't touched a weight in the gym, and that's bad. So now, I'm trying to get myself back into it.
weight's not the only way.
I was about to say that.
I walk my kid to school, I do it like that. But I was a gym rat. Like all of us here, to brag about ourselves. I have pictures I could bring out. Everyone has pictures when I looked a certain way. You know what I'm saying? So basically, I gotta talk to myself to know, like, to start and, putting yourself first and all of that. I know it makes sense, and you sound great saying it. It's just like actually doing it. You know what I mean? Like, I keep telling people when I retired, and now I'm retired, and I didn't start yet. But I told my nutritionist that I meet for the first time. Then my and what do you call them? The one that deals with diabetes, that doctor. But I told endocrine, I don't know. But I told her that I'm gonna start, doing my thing. I'm talking a good game. I didn't do it yet, but I have no problem with the gym. I live there. I eat it, but it's just that starting. I'm the type when I started, I'll keep doing it.
So
it's
that you got to get in the rhythm.
Okay, well,
you got to get in.
You probably haven't experienced or had that epiphany moment or that aha moment or that moment that
No, I've had it eating a bunch of fried chicken and stuff. That was my aha moment. Like, I shouldn't be doing this with the cholesterol. You know what I'm saying?
What I'm telling you is when you do have it, it'll become a priority to you. Like
Yeah,
nothing
so
will deter
right.
you.
It's like, you know what it's like? It's
Well,
like
sometimes you're your worst enemy too.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
not
but
saying
you-
I'm not
but
saying
you
the epiphany
deal
won't
with it.
happen,
Right.
but it's like some people have the epiphany
Uh-huh.
and they push through it too, in a bad way. Like they'll have it like I shouldn't do it. It's a real epiphany, but it's like hard sometimes.
But here's
you
the
know what I'm saying?
epiphany based on what Marlon said, which is when you are sick, everything stops. When
is
you have
true.
a toothache,
That is true.
everything stops. You got
Nothing matters.
that's right.
Plain.
Nothing. Nothing. When you are in pain, nothing matters. If you got a pain in your chest that brought you to your knees, you wouldn't be talking about I talk a good game. You would be doing something about it. All we're saying is, do you need to get the pain to be brought to your knees?
I do.
You
Because I
do.
feel
That's
like
the
I'm-
aha
And
moment.
that's what he said.
That's what he's saying.
The black man
I'm
needs the
50 years
pain
in.
to bring them to reality, and
I
that's
feel
the
like I'm
problem.
the best shape of my life right now.
Do you?
Even though I know it's not true. No, but I feel like I could talk, I could lift anything right now. I think I could run.
That's a funny.
You'll need that episode.
Yeah, I think I'm the WD-40.
All right, maybe
That's
you
a
need
good
a
thing.
gym buddy or
Oh,
something.
and the other thing too that I was gonna mention earlier is that again I can't speak for everybody. I'm born and raised here, but heavy duty Haitian. Like to me, like I speak the language, I eat the food, I love the music. They're like, but you're born here. I got other brothers and sisters that were born here, like me, went to elementary school with me. They do nothing Haitian. They're really, just Black American. They're not. They don't hardly speak the language. They don't like the music. But for some reason, I always did. You know what I'm saying? That's the connection me and Anel had together
Yes.
too. But the point is that in our culture, I can't speak for all the I know it's probably similar the same, but in the Haitian culture, I was making a joke. Our number one food is griot, which is a pork shoulder, and the best part is with the grease and the fat in it, and they boil it and they fry it. You see what I'm saying?
I do.
And then with platanos, the Spanish people call it tostones, us Haitians call it bun and braisé. That ain't good for you. It's platanos, which is good, but then they fry it, deep fry it, in
Artery
some grease
killer.
and some oil. So no, I'm just saying culturally sometimes
I think we're all
that
similar.
that hinders how you're trying to eat right because they think they're eating right because it's organic. No, if you go to but that's why Haitians organic don't mean nothing to us. Haitians, everything we eat, and Jamaicans, everything, island people, we born organic. What is people making they probably come to America like, what's this big deal they're making about organic?
Southern
The chicken was
cooking-
just killed. It was in the backyard.
Southern
so-
cooking, same deal.
I know, that's why I said similar.
Fried and everything, and I love it. I love it. I know I can do fried chicken maybe once a month, right? Because it's good. Like riding past like a Popeyes and you smell that stuff. Oh my God, it's like an aphrodisiac.
I'm trying to tell you.
But again, the aha moment is, yeah, this kid is gonna call me in a couple of days like, hey dad, I need $50.
See, that's where Jeff's conspiracy theory coming at. Cause you smelling Popeyes, you know damn well Popeyes ain't real chicken.
Yeah.
I'm speaking to what it smells like, and it's talking to me. But because of my aha moment, I gotta I can't leave until these my two kids are able to, at least me, I believe or I'm confident that they can maintain themselves. Now, that's not to say if let's say they are self-sufficient. I don't know that I'm gonna still pull over and have that Popeyes. I mean, I'd love to, right? But I know, like
My
your
brother,
body
it's not just Popeyes. I understand what you're saying and I get what you're saying, but that's what I'm talking about. Living, and this is the conspiracy thing again, in the system of things. We're in a system of things, on the internet, everything, the Popeyes commercial, the KFC commercial, the smell of it when you drive by, Gabby's Pieces across the street, all these, all of these. It's not one thing. It's like there's magic. So you can do fine with your Popeyes, but what about KFC or what about what about whatever
Southern
brand name
fried
food
chicken.
I can name?
That's what I
Churches.
referred
You're gonna
to
eat it.
when I said the data is coming at you from all directions faster now with the cell phone and the internet. It's coming at you, right? But your aha moment, which will kind of be turned into priorities, will help you filter all of that stuff. And so that's
From your mouth to
I got a quick question. About the grease, is it the fact that it's fried in oil, or is it the type of oil that it's fried in that makes it bad?
The type of oil.
Well, because it's reused. It's fast food, so you don't
Well,
want
no,
to change
because we
it's
got-
the type of oil. So you
Yeah.
can't, all this the granola oil, the corn oil, and between the mixtures of oil, because as we all found out within the United States, unfortunately, we all get a mixture of oils that we should not be having.
Yeah.
Seed oil, all these other things. So it's the type of oil, not the fact that it's fried in the oil.
type of-
That's why they came out here with, now we got the air fryer. Now you don't need
Yes,
it.
the air
So now we're
fryer.
going to
I
do it
mean,
like that.
I use-
I agree with you. I agree with you because I think a lot of it we really have to like almost retrain ourselves in what we thought was actually healthy might not be healthy, and
That's
some of the
right.
things that were actually healthy that they turn around and tell us now it's not healthy was actually
Like
healthy.
Thomas
We gotta
said,
go back to
milk.
it. Right.
What Thomas said.
So
Milk.
so it's and then again too for me it's developing a personal relationship with your body, listening to your body because it speaks to us. It tells us.
Right.
You go to a buffet and you eat, or you eat at a restaurant or maybe at home, and you feel a little upset stomach. Your body's saying, hey guy, something is wrong here. Something is
right.
wrong. But we're constantly on the go that we don't really listen. So
And
Or we ignore it.
or ignore
well,
it.
I think to your point, Marlon, which is that if you are constantly on the go and you're being, surrounded by all of the stimuli, and you eat and you're not hungry.
Yeah.
You just eat because you think you should eat.
My
You
grandparents
got
used
the
to
money
say,
in your pocket.
my grandparents
that
used to
too,
say
but-
your ears is bigger than your stomach.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're listening to what your stomach is saying, you just continue eating. By the time you're full, it's too late. You can't hear no more.
Yeah, so I heard you speaking earlier, Marlon, I thought, about intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
And that's something that I do as well. It's just not planned, it just happens.
It happens.
Which is I eat when I'm hungry.
Right.
And when I'm not hungry, I don't eat.
Yeah.
So
So you don't do the 5 times a day thing?
oh no, I can do
No,
that.
no,
I'd be a big
Well,
person.
there's some doctors. That's what I'm telling you. There's misinformation, even from medical people. They'll tell some of them have because you have.
Well, I think it
different-
depends on the person because there's some people who actually have to eat 5 times a day.
Sometimes a day. Yeah.
So-
Marlon just
no-
said you gotta learn yourself.
Yeah, you gotta learn your body.
Once you learn your body, wake up like I don't eat before 12.
Like for
Okay.
me,
Just 'cause.
my a lot of times I'll do 18 hours, right? So I won't eat for 18 hours. I'll just have water. But what's most important for me is when I break my fast. It's like the word break fast, breakfast, right? So I will most of the time I'll try to make sure that that first meal is a nutritious meal because your body it's craving for nutrients at that point. And if you feed it with let's say garbage or carbohydrate sugar, then it can be problematic later on. So but you just got to feel your body out. And you got to sometimes experiment and I take the position that my cup is not full. So what I know today might be obsolete tomorrow. And what I know today might be helpful for me today based upon my experience and my journey at that moment. But having the mindset that I might have to abandon that, right? Not getting constipated on one particular body of knowledge, right? And if I have to change, I have to change, right? And adapt into the times. I was watching yesterday, I went by my brother's house and we were watching this documentary of these indigenous culture, and this was amazing. I don't remember the name of the culture, but they were able to stay underwater for 4 minutes. And I said, wow, that's incredible. So they have developed their bodies to the point that they can hold their breath for that long. So it just shows you the amazing functions that the body have when we don't create limitations. And when we push the envelope sometimes, right? Safely, right? I'm not suggesting that anybody try to go underwater for 4 minutes.
No.
But, we could learn stuff from that, So we really should look at this thing of life in our body and not limit ourselves because it's a lot that we can do and that we will do if we are open enough to give ourselves that opportunity.
Well, here's the thing. I knock on some wood, want to be here, 20 plus years from now, and I would like to see you guys here. So, so if this
Oh, man.
conversation sparks folks kind of focused on their health and doing what they have to
Absolutely.
do, then I've accomplished a whole lot just in the brief time that we've been here. But let me segue into another, perhaps not so controversial question, maybe controversial. You mentioned you had to be available for your son. You want to be here in case the phone rings and he gets pulled over on the side of the road by a cop.
Right.
Has anybody here been pulled over by police?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That's like it's like asking a black man, you ever had a pair of sneakers?
Okay, so what was that experience like?
Well, I'll let Thomas go first.
So,
Well, first, how old were you?
no, this was a couple of weeks ago. This was- yeah.
Okay.
And I was totally at fault.
Okay.
You know, the light turns yellow instead of slowing down or taking your foot off the gas. I tried to make the light, and as I'm going through the intersection, I see the cop sitting there waiting for people to do just like what I do.
I see.
So, and as soon as I saw him pull out, I immediately, I didn't even wait for him to get to me. I just pulled over, waited for him. And now this is the process, right? So, and it was nighttime too. And so I pull all my stuff out, put it on top of the thing, put the dome light on the car. I just sat there and waited for him to come. He came, the interaction was very, it was very plain, right? I call it bonton. I don't know if y'all remember bonton potato chips.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Bonton,
yeah.
No frill.
Right. So
I just got it.
He came, so he ran the light. I said, listen, I ain't expecting you. I'm in Garden City. I'm not expecting you to be sitting there, to my surprise. So he said, anything on your license? I said, I'm sure you'll tell me if it is. So he said, listen, Mr. Kemp, it's late. Just take it easy, right? Now, I know that's a function of the neighborhood that I live in, what I look like, the car that I have, and the time of night. Now, you take 30 years off of me. Everything else the same.
What kind of car? What kind of car?
Jaguar,
Okay.
right? You take 30 years away, and that experience, I'm not so sure goes the same way. And so that's a thing. Earlier I alluded to, I got to be able to pick up the phone, right? Because that is, especially more so with my son than with my daughter. But I'm always like, oh man, like, and when he's at school, right? He has an apartment out east. When he's going out, and cause I got his location on the phone. When he's going out, I'm like, listen, when you come in, I know you don't have to call me. I don't need to smell the beer on your breath, but I don't care about all that. I just need to know you back in the crib, you back in the house. So just shoot me a text or whatever. Just easy, just make it back, and so I can kind of sleep a little better. Or if I get up in the morning and I haven't gotten that text, the first thing I'm doing is looking at his location, and he should either be at home or at practice that early in the morning anyway. And I know that there are a lot of variables that went into that interaction, that if those variables were different or didn't exist, it probably goes another way. And I have that conversation.
You know what you said, I never thought about this regarding age-wise. I guess, like the last time I was pulled over, actually didn't get a ticket.
How old were you then?
This was, I don't know, maybe about a year or so ago.
Okay.
So I told the officer, I said, I really didn't see the line. I guess I crossed the line to go to the other side, and I was very honest with him. I said, I really didn't see it, officer. And he let me go, right? I tell you this, I try to Renee know my history, but I try to put myself in the shoes of that police officer sometimes in terms of they're just there to give a ticket. So I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to try to fuss. If you're going to give me a ticket, give me a ticket, right?
Right.
And I'm going to be respectful, and I expect you to be respectful, right? And that's just how I see it, you know.
And is that how it went?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay,
I mean,
okay.
he could have gave me a ticket, I guess, you know, because I was in the wrong,
Okay.
and I was very upfront and honest with him, and I really didn't see the actual line, right? And you know, I was happy that I didn't get a ticket.
Okay. All right.
But
you're
I've had other encounters before when I was younger that
Okay.
That's
you know, went a little bit different. So, and I think sometimes there's a disconnect between the adult males and teenagers because you know sometimes we look at this generation, we say they're disrespectful, and a lot of it is true, right? But there's a reason for that as well, and so I can see how not just even a police officer, I just can see males in general or an older male get into a confrontation with a younger a teenager who lacks respect, right? And who feels entitled and stuff like that. So,
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, I got pulled over by police a couple times, but this in particular time, I was doing security, and I was in the hood, going to the after hour spot to do security with my coworker, and they pulled us over because tint on the windows. When they pulled us over, I said I don't have tint on the windows because I don't. Bubble on the left, on the right, and bubble on the left. The back windows, though, I had the shade up, you know, the one that come out the thing.
oh, okay.
So they was like, no, you have tint on the windows, sir. We're going to give you a ticket. And this is one of those times where, you know, I'm like, you being a dickhead, excuse the language, for nothing right now. I'm like, I don't have tint on the windows, sir. Roll down your windows. Sure, no problem. I said, oh, you talking about this? You know how it drops down. And at that point was, oh, you have anything in the car? I said, excuse me, you just pulled over for tint.
Okay.
And I don't have tint. Well, you just have a nice day and be careful. So at that point, do I be an asshole?
No, but intuitively, he felt stupid,
Of course he did.
and
but
he
but
reacted.
at that point in time,
He reacted.
He could've
You
did
made him look
anything.
like an idiot. Because
but
actually,
could've
he
did
made himself
anything-
look like an idiot.
What I'm saying, he could
because
did
he's so-
anything at that point because of where we were at,
Yeah.
the kind of lighting it
Yeah,
was.
yeah,
He
yeah.
could have did anything. The only thing that I would say saved me is the fact that we were going to do security work,
yeah.
and who I was with actually had the security identification.
Right.
Because at that point in time would have been me reacting to his
Yeah.
retardedness.
Yeah.
And now I gotta be retarded, and now I'm in jail
Hold on a
because
second. You said your colleague had the
Security outfit
ID.
or something. Like that.
you
identification.
didn't have
No.
your
No,
but you said you were going to do security,
absolutely.
so you like in training at the time.
I guess you could call it that.
Okay, no, I got you. Okay,
Right.
I got you.
I was on a job.
I mean, you know, and it's crazy. A situation like that could have been easily resolved. He could have just apologized. I'm sorry. It looks like you got tint.
And
My bad.
they
Have a
were
safe-
they were
have a safe
white
day.
boys in the south side of Queens, in the hood, on the back streets where it's dark, because they were sitting. They wasn't driving past. They were sitting. So it's these type of things that, as us black men in our 50s and 40s coming up, our kids coming up had to deal with, because it's not always the good cop that's going to take care of you when he sees you. Because if you're sitting in the dark waiting for something that minor to happen, and it could have been anything. And
I think the time with the
You don't agree.
you agree?
I do, but then it comes upon where we deviate, right? So he's in a high crime area, right? So he
Why you say it's a high crime area?
says it's in South Jamaica.
Does that make it a high crime area?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen,
I agree.
listen, we have 40-day. It's like a block party
I know that.
every summer.
Absolutely.
I remember I took my son. He's been the one. I took him maybe 2012, and I'm telling you, my son, he was like, "What is this?" Right? And so so I say that to say, it is, they're there because, and it probably that's influencing how they work, right? Because now, if you go, let's say 3 miles to the north and go in Jamaica Estates, they don't police like that, right? So they are there, and chance, the reality is a lot of the guys doing shenanigans outside the car have tinted windows, right? But now, you didn't break the law,
Right.
right? And so, to your point, you would expect the cop to have some
courtesy.
Some remorse, some courtesy, right?
You got it plastered on the side of the car, right? But then
That's true.
the ego comes in.
Yeah.
But what
yeah,
I'm saying
yeah.
is, and so this what I stress to my son and my daughter, and now this is coming from,
experience.
I'm the only member of my family that didn't go law enforcement, right? I'm the only one, right? I explained to my son, like, just like you and your coach can have an argument because your professor gave you a grade you didn't like, or your girlfriend said something you don't like. Now you're responding an unusual way to your coach, to a normal interaction with your coach. Now, should your coach just go to the left because you're acting? No, there has to be some kind of consideration given both ways, right? Cop was wrong. He's a jerk. He probably should have apologized, whatever. But your goal should be to get away from that interaction, because you're going to make money, right? So now get away from that, go make your money, and let him deal with the next issue that comes up, right? And so this is what I have to emphasize with my son. And my father used to tell me, listen, on the side of the road is not the time to argue your case with an officer, right? He said, all you got to do, and I get a lot of people don't have this benefit, all you have to do is get to the phone and call one of us, and that your problem will be resolved, right? So I should not have an officer telling me you were being disrespectful, because I know what that came with, right? So that's what I just emphasized to my son. Like, listen, he has a nice car. I said, if you get pulled over, put the windows on, put the lights, put the lights down,
on, yeah.
Put the light on, or put the windows down. I'm sorry, and just answer the question. Try to answer them yes, no, as direct as possible, and then if there's an issue, stop talking and make a phone call. Right now, to the point that I'm making is, I have a lot of friends who I grew up with, and I see who did not have anyone to share that kind of information, and they learn by, again, all that data that comes to them and everything, and they start, what is your articulate, and they start doing that stuff, and I if I have to grab my son by the back of his neck, I don't want to hear that crap from you. Just give them what they want.
Chill out.
And if it starts going to the left, nothing else to say. Say, hey, I want to call my father.
My dad used to say to me, when your hand is in the lion mouth, you gotta take your time and pull it out, right?
Exactly.
And he's right, because I remember there was one incident where I was coming home. I had my friend. He was in the passenger seat. He was drunk, and we got pulled over, and he's talking all that stuff. So I realized that, wait a minute, if I don't kind of calm this situation down, it's going to be a problem, right?
Right.
So I said, officer, don't pay him no mind. He had too much to drink, blah, 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 blah. And then cracked some joke, and they laughed and went about our business, right?
Okay.
Just trying to, because in that situation, I have the blade of the knife. I don't have the handle, so I got to be careful, right?
You're gonna stick yourself or stick them.
Like I said, I learned over the years, right, through experience, of how to navigate these situations. Just knowing when you're in a position where you're holding the handle of that situation, or if you're holding the blade. Because if you're holding the blade and you're fronting like you're holding the handle, you're going to get cut, right? And so, so I think the younger generation, if they understand that, they would have less problems, not just with law enforcement, just in general, right? Because I think a lot of times, the ego, authority, yes, yeah.
Right, right.
But now let me ask you.
And not to cut you, that's important for them to learn how to respect authority, because you will no matter what position you are in, you will always have some authority over you.
Well,
And
that's,
if
that's,
you don't-
that's another
I was
conversation.
about, yeah, 'cause I
And if
had
you
to
don't
change
know
positions on
how-
that one. That's a whole nother conversation because
you're,
you
you're 100% right. And I want to come back to that, but before I do, Jeff, you mentioned you got stopped by the police.
Yeah. So
That's a different.
we gotta qualify that. Because that'll happen too. I did law enforcement. I'm retired now, and one of my things, even as a cop, the least interaction I want with another member of service, because they're carrying something that is life.
Exactly.
The least, I don't make chit chat. If you stop me, I did, and that's why I didn't jump in, because the three of you brothers had it. I'm the one who was currently in law enforcement, but they hit everything that I could have said, and very articulately, and everything you said is what I would tell people to say. What I hated when I pulled somebody over is when they want to do street court. It's not, I saw what I saw, you said it, you didn't see it, I'm going to tell you why. And then they want to keep going back and forth, and they want to, tell me what the law is and everything else. I'm like, here's this, then I'll see you in court. You know what I'm saying? And that's about it. Drive safely. But basically, yeah, when I got stopped, scared my wife. She was my fiance at the time. And then, I got pulled over for something, and I told the brother that, here is my badge, here's everything, and my man is still talking. I'm like, yo, I train people like you. This is what I do. On how to do this and everything. What are we talking about? You know what I'm saying? So he got, all pissed off, and it's an ego thing.
It is. It is.
I didn't start it. I'm a member, sir. I didn't start nothing. I'm saying whatever. My man's trying to dig something to start something. And then I told him, So just want to say that every career, and I tell people this all the time, cops, because we take away people's freedom and, all that kind of stuff. But there's people, like in the doctor's office on the operating table, they made a wrong thing, person died. I know there's malpractice and all that, but they come out and tell you, your uncle didn't make it. You know what I'm saying? They don't get arrested for murder. They might have broke the wrong rib, did the wrong thing, you know what I'm saying? But that's that career where it's okay. But, with this career, which is a different thing, I'm just saying humans are humans. You get good ones. You have bad ones in every career. Sure. Bad cop, bad doctor, good doctor, bad lawyer. No, never a bad lawyer. Renee is the best lawyer. That's why I'm here today.
Thank you.
nice.
But yeah, so it's just it's so nobody likes that, but cops are humans too, and they're held to a higher thing. They shouldn't have an attitude. They shouldn't have a bad day. They shouldn't take what's going on with their wife or their kids while they're wearing that uniform. But it's gonna happen.
That's God. I'm gonna let Thomas talk. Go ahead.
So two things. Just one briefly. So you do have to acknowledge though that there are consequences that should be proportional to the level of responsibility, right? So, for example, if the bodega man gives you the wrong set of cigarettes, you order Newports, he gives you Marlboro, that's a mistake, but the consequence, the result of that mistake is maybe another 10-minute inconvenience. Now you got to walk back to the store. Whereas if the doctor makes a mistake, they're
life-threatening.
Different consequences. So I think the rebuke has to be proportional to the consequence of the error. You understand?
But some of them get away with murder was my
There'll always be the exception. There'll always be, like, for example.
But me and you can't prove it because we're not doctors or scientists.
Right. But
they'll say it was part of it.
But conceptually, it's still the same. For example, you go to your doctor's or the doctor's appointment 1:00. This guy got you sitting there at 1:45. Name another appointment you can go and you wait 45 minutes and it's like, okay, business as usual. Right? You can go on a date, you have a girl waiting there for
She
probably won't
leaving.
have this.
She gone.
DMV.
But but it's just accepted.
No, I
So
get
like
that.
it has these little nuances, right?
Nuances, yes.
So I had, I guess, more close to the point where we're talking about. So I was living in East New York at the time, right? And
Sutter, Pitkin, Livonia.
right, but Sutter on Bradford.
I used to work around there.
7-5, right? So my stepson, was on his way to work. It's about 3:00 in the summer. He walks to his car. He's putting his knapsack and stuff in the car. The police swooping. My neighbors call me, they got Kevin over there, blah, blah, blah. So they pat him down, search him, blah, blah. They looking for guns. Apparently there was fireworks going off, and they think he may be putting his gun in his trunk of his car.
Mhm.
All right. So when I get to him, he's crying. Now he's like 16 years old at this time, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm telling them they said I'm a gang member and all of this and all."
Oh.
I said, "Who?" He said, "From the police." I know, no problem. Put my briefcase down. Boom, get in the car. We go right around the corner to the precinct, and so I speak to the lieutenant. Lieutenant comes out, and she walks me around the corner. A female, black female, walks me around the corner. Listen, it's the job, and these guys, testosterone, they're just looking for guns. I said, what does that have to do
Exactly,
with my
that's-
son?
Mhm.
Well, he had a bag and everything, and I said, he was going to work. Did one of your guys ask him what he was doing? Because last I know, it's not illegal to have a bag, right? So did you ask him about the bag? Did you even ask him, can you look in the bag, right? Because I'm sure if he shows you there's nothing in the bag, then this interaction should be over, right? And so my point is I felt like she was trying to work me with all of
Exactly.
the built-in excuses.
Yeah.
And so after
Just trying to justify.
I kind of deflect them. She finally says, "Look, Mr. Kemp, the reality is if we had more parents to come around the corner and come to the station house and protest like you, then when I protest to my guys, it would be easier for me to protest to my guys. But the fact of the matter is that there'll be 5 or 6 more Black and Latino
Now,
kids.
see
'cause
that,
that's in
and
that
this is
area.
why, and this is why I got
should
a
it
problem
be-
with.
it
I got a
should-
problem
it
with
should
that.
not be the case.
Right, because
No,
at the end of the day,
It should not be
you
the
go to
case.
protest to the guys, but if you're training the guys what is supposed to be training from jump, we wouldn't have the situation because now they pulled over his son because let's be real, walking while black. What? So what?
but-
It happens. Oh, so this is the difference between. And I'm glad we went into this conversation. This is the difference between having white privilege and us building black excellence, because now we know, and every white person with the complexion that's lighter than ours, except for Brother Jeff, because he Haitian. You know what I'm saying? They understand. A lot of white folk understand their white privilege because this is a real thing.
No, it's a real issue.
But
yeah.
when does
It
black
is, it is, it is.
excellence become a real thing?
is,
Like
it is,
we
it
have to
is.
build on this. We have to teach ours to know like we are excellent human beings. We thrive off this. We grow off this. We come from kings and queens. They just now made us, slaves and Decepticons, what you want to call it.
You gonna say something?
No, I was just gonna say that I'm gonna play a violin
Okay, I'm gonna listen.
because they say there's a criminal profiling, which is legal, and racial profiling is not legal. So if you have like an area, like I never worked in a 7-5. I worked there once or twice, but I was in a Brooklyn cop. I was in Harlem. So
Similar.
yeah, I know that's what I'm saying. So I was on the street for 2 years. Supposed to be put in the car after 6 months, whatever. The strike. I was on foot for 2 years, and I see there's certain people that were maybe 15 when I started, and then I left there when they were like 21. I actually saw them grow up. Like they know me, I knew them, and some of them, probably went on to do good things. Some of them I see doing the same thing at 15, at 21, doing the same thing on the same corner. But the point is that I'm trying to make is that I always, because I'm in it and I got a job to do. And, you know, I understand when people would like drive by. If I had, because this was the era of stop, question, and frisk, they don't really use that the way they did when I graduated. So basically, if I had like, you know, a street 129 in Lenox, and let's say that in the last 6 months there was a pocketbook and cell phone snatching on that same corner, and then all of the witnesses, or I should say the victims, all of them gave the same description: black male, 15 to 19 years old, bald head to short hair, Caesar, darker skin, with blue jeans, white shirt, you know, whatever, which is everybody walking the block. So sometimes it's not that easy where you have criminal profiling and racial profiling. I'm not looking for a white teen. I'm not looking for a Chinese teen. They didn't do it. The 10 witnesses said it wasn't them, so why would I be looking for them? So the ones that I would be looking for are the ones that fit that kind of, and then you're going to have one or two good kids going to whatever kind of school with good grades that fits the age, fits the description, maybe harmlessly loitering, you know, just think that you should go home, but they want to talk on that corner and like 5-10 of them blocking pedestrian traffic. We got to move.
But this
them.
is
That's
the
our job. We
this
got
the
to move
neighborhoods
them.
that we
And then
from.
when we move, you understand, and they ask for IDs and stuff, come out that one of them, okay, you can go, but you popped on a warrant. Now,
So,
why?
so my issue with that is that's all reasonable, right? And I get that, right? My problem, or I think what comes out of that is,
Oh,
and
no. Wait, before, just hold on. Don't forget what you're going to say. I just say all of that to say people would drive by. Renee could be in her car, black, affluent, you know, and Mercedes Benz, whatever, and say, look at these racist cop talking about me with these 5 brothers up against the wall, these teenagers. Let these kids go. They don't know what's going on. The robberies, this, that, the recidivists. They got gun charges on, you know, I could bring you back to the precinct where they have the pictures of recidivists that got arrested for knife, guns, all type of stuff that keep doing it. And then they have local gangs, which a lot of people don't know about. I was watching a thing with Cameron the other day. He's like, yeah, you know, I'm from Lenox and 140 Wolves. Yeah, there's 40 Wolves. There's GOD Goons on deck. There's LOE Lincoln over everything. There's, you know, so there's all of these. They're not Bloods and Crips, and they're there. And some people don't even know that that's going on in 2025. I thought that was the the outsiders,
The
or you know
90s.
something. It's current, you know. So
I get that, right? That's the job part. That's logical. If you're not a part of that industry, it may seem foreign, but that doesn't mean it doesn't make it's not
exist,
right.
right.
That's not what I'm talking.
And I say the other side too. I'm not saying that the racial stuff don't exist or that the getting the wrong kid, your kid doesn't exist, but it's almost like a casualty of war, which is bad. It's a violent. I said I'm playing
So
violent.
that's where the issue becomes, right? So let's say you roll up on the kid, he checks all the boxes, right? But he's not the guy, right? So why don't we contain it to whatever has to happen till the moment when you realize, oh, this is not the guy, and then use some empathy, because now you just traumatized this person. Let them leave that interaction, hopefully not being overwhelmed and traumatized.
But then you got the adrenaline is all riled up now on both
But
ends.
this is where law. This is where law comes
I
into
didn't-
hand.
I didn't get to the
No,
point.
hold on now. The law that existed at the time, I'm telling you, when I was doing it, they had laws for blocking pedestrian traffic. They don't
Right,
have
right,
those
but
anymore.
right. But
Let him
here's the
finish
point.
the
You're making the point.
Right. The point is, now that kid leaves that interaction with a distorted view of law enforcement. Now,
But he broke the law.
No,
No, he didn't break the
He
law.
No, he did. He was blocking pedestrian traffic.
So
No,
here's
that's not-
here's
that's not-
here's I hear what you're saying. Here's what's happening. You're saying he's
3 or
blocking.
more, blocking where they have
Exactly.
to go around,
That's-
visually acknowledged by an officer.
I hear you.
That was the
So
summons.
here's
that
what
was the summons then.
I got it. I'm staying back then.
Yeah.
I'm staying back then. When 3 non-African Americans are blocking a sidewalk in a predominantly white neighborhood, are they rolled up? Does somebody roll up on them and say, "Listen"?
Violin. I never worked
No,
in
here's
the
what happens.
I never worked in
here's
that
here's what happens. Here's what
I'm
happens.
just trying to tell you.
You know,
I know,
But
but,
here- but-
I
but-
can understand. I
but
didn't
here-
see it myself.
but here's what
I'm
happens.
not saying it doesn't exist.
Okay, that's
but
what-
I never worked there.
Here's what happens. I do have a small violin, and my paralegal just walked in, and I can have her go in my office and get it. So I have one. So the reality is, I don't want you to avoid the question. You're retired law enforcement.
Right.
You know it exists in other communities and
Right.
it doesn't exist
I
in our
assume it
community.
exists.
You know it exists. There's no assumption to be made.
You got colleagues that work those
Yes,
other areas.
absolutely.
I'll say
I
this.
know
You
it
describe
exists, but
your
I've never
day.
seen it
No,
myself.
we acknowledge that. It's not you.
No,
We're not.
none
It's
of
not
us-
you. No.
None of us
I will
experience slavery personally,
Right.
but we can describe it though.
That's why I never said it didn't
So wait,
exist
no,
here.
no,
Okay,
I
fair
said
enough.
I can't
And you
put
did.
my badge on the line and say that I've seen it.
Fair enough. Fair
But
enough.
we're not asking you to do that. We're
Right,
just
right.
asking you for a perspective
Right.
that you're more familiar with than any of us in here because you're a part of the industry.
And do you know there's another part? Well, I would let people go because there's something called courtesy.
That's
Yes.
the
I
That's
as
what
an,
he said.
but it's each individual officer.
Recognize
Let's
that.
say there's three of us here.
No,
I could let you go. He decided not to.
Right.
So I didn't do it. Was it done
So-
yet?
so then-
that's the first step in the point
So,
that I
but
was
but
making.
but then
right?
but then wait to hold that
Uh-huh.
point because you know what? It's I believe it's in the movie Training Day with Denzel
Yes.
Washington,
Mhm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Where he says, "Do you want to go home, or you want to go to jail?" Those are the two options, right? So wait, let me finish. Let me
Go
finish.
ahead, go ahead.
Because if those are the two options, then you want to be respectful. You want to pull your car, put it in park, roll the windows down, turn the dome light on. Because I want to go home. I don't want to go to jail. I don't know that I'm going to run into you. You're a nice guy. You're a decent guy. I don't know you're the guy who's going to let me go home.
True.
I don't know that.
Or let me go home if I'm
Whatever. I don't know that. So I have to pretend because it's in my mindset, because it's in the culture. I have to play a certain role. I have to recognize I may be a college educated student. You, not to say you are, you may be a cop who just graduated high school. I may be the one in the high end car. You may be a cop who's not in a high end car. There may be ego, jealousy, whatever. But I want to go home. I don't want to go to jail. So I'm going to follow instructions. I don't know anything about you. You don't know anything about me. I want to go home. You want to go home. I don't want to go to jail. I don't want you to take me to jail. So the reality is there's an acknowledgement that has to be had, and I'm sure you're acknowledging that, that in other communities, folks don't have to have that experience. They don't have to have that thought process.
And-
If I
I'm
could
sorry.
add one thing, remember the experiment that they did with the dolls?
Yes.
Yes.
And what that showed, these are kids, these are babies. What that showed us is that it's baked in. It's already baked in. That mentality is already baked in, right? So there's a subconscious perception that this person is evil because of their skin color, right? And so when you take that now to adults with a uniform on, come on, right? So to me, it's to Renee's point, we see it, the difference in other communities, right? And for me, I just want to be treated fairly. Just give me a fair shot.
So my point was in the scenario, the kid is there. You realize, and I said this one had not done it. Whatever it wasn't him. It becomes clear it's not him. At that point, I believe if police or society wants the perception of police officers, especially in the low-income areas, to change, in that moment, now the cop should let the person know, hey, we got some stuff going on. It's not personal. Have a good day. Go about your way. Too many times, it's I'll get you the next time, or something
Or that
negative that like an aftertaste
Mm-hmm.
that gets that remains. And so what happens is that kid or that person and everyone else who witnessed that story spreads. And then now, to your point, when you do have the knuckleheads up against the wall who may belong there, some of those other people are driving by and they don't know the particulars of that. They know, about when they had the good Mr. good little kid there, and they hemmed him up and just threw him away like a bad fish. That's what they see when they ride by. And I think what bothers us, I know bothers me, is when police act like these interactions are like held in a vacuum, like they just don't happen. When you know your colleague that may work in that area, that zip code over there, when you talk about his week, oh yeah, I wrote a couple of jaywalking tickets. And meanwhile, you're ducking bullets. So you know that the interactions are different. The way you police over here is not the way you police over there. All I'm saying is,
And naturally so.
I'm not commenting one way or the other. That's just what it is, right? But what I'm saying is the humanistic piece is, okay, we know this was a traumatic experience for you. Listen, don't take it personal. We're just trying to do our job. Get about your business. I'm sorry. Now, you guys get a lot of training because our taxes pay for it, right? So you're trained how to react. No one trains the general public how to interact with people, right? So who should the bar be higher for? The trained professional, again, plastered on the car,
Yeah, we didn't get no training on
or
response.
the lay person walking around who may have never had a father or a mother in the house and no training.
But you know
Where
what,
should the
Thomas?
bar
Not,
be?
not for nothing.
I think we gotta split
and
the
just
baby
just
in half.
just to come up to the aid of my brother Jeff here.
I'm sorry. I'm
You
not.
know,
You don't think I'm attacking?
Nah, you're not. I know you're not. I'm messing with you. I'm messing with you.
You're not joking.
You know,
All right.
at the end of the day, look, like he said earlier, Jeff said earlier,
I said
officers are nothing.
violin.
Officers are nothing but humans. Also, out here doing a 9 to 5, trying to get their check. But unfortunately, we meet a lot that's scared regularly from wherever they come from.
Understand.
They automatically get trained in white privilege and not in black excellence, because you can get a black cop pull over a white kid and automatically know, let me let him go, and vice versa. And guess what? Now you got a fine or a ticket. I got to take you down and give you, what they call let you go. What do you call return?
Desk appearance.
Yeah, desk appearance
Right.
ticket.
So the point that I'm making is, because you know that takes place, don't pretend or act as if I don't know why they don't like me. You know why they don't like you. Now, you can be the change. What are you doing to change that narrative, right? And so if you're just buying in and, buying in, this is the blue wall, blah, 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 well, then don't act like why you don't understand why the people don't like you, because you're not doing anything to change the narrative, right? So that's all the point that I'm saying. Like,
You're saying the responsibility, us taking responsibility as well, right?
Yes. Like, my way of changing that, contributing to changing that, is I tell my son or any youth that will listen,
Right.
listen, don't run your mouth back and forth. I said, because look, in the hood, you run your mouth, what happens? Somebody gonna knock you in your mouth, right? So because he has the uniform on, you somehow the rules don't apply. It's
No,
universal
you're dealing with another
law.
man.
Yeah, right?
You're dealing
You
with
run your
another
mouth.
man. It doesn't matter. Uniform or no uniform. You're
So
dealing with
so
another
I tell
man with
kids, like, listen,
testosterone.
just
So
shut your mouth, make your phone call, right? That's my way of
taking responsibility.
of trying,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
It's just too many times, and so my kid went to a all white high school, right? And so when I'm speaking with the parents, right, I become Black Mr. Black USA, right? Yeah, right. And so I tell them, when you guys will understand because just reading it and everything, you got experience, right? So when you'll understand. My son's name is Thomas also. I said, you'll understand when the boys, the kids, when they're out hanging out somewhere and the police swoop down on Thomas and do something wrong, then it'll mean something to you, because now all those baked in excuses that you hear, that don't apply to this kid, because you know this kid and you know what he is personally, and you will say, no, this something has to change. And we saw that one time up in, I think it was Mamaroneck or something like that. A kid, he was playing football up there, and the police, something happened. It was an interaction. The kid wound up dying, and the community was outraged. Predominantly white community.
This was a black kid that died.
Yes.
Or white kid?
Yeah, black kid
Black
that
kid
died.
in a
But he
park
was with his friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the police were uber aggressive. And The family was like, no. I mean, the neighborhood was like, no. He did this, and we you know, and I'm telling the parents, and I'm like, y'all was surprised. Just like with the OJ thing, when you heard the tape of the guy saying this is what we do to the niggas and all that, y'all were like, oh, clutching beads.
Oh, yeah.
We're like, no, that's our reality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
No,
our
no,
reality.
no, no. It was their reality, but to hear it so verbally
run from
is
it.
like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
And so to just to bring it full circle, my point is, and again, you know, I'm not right.
No,
my
no,
point is, cops say they don't understand. We're just here trying to protect. Well, it doesn't feel like that, right? When a doctor, you go to get a wound cleaned out, doctor says, listen, I'm going to give you some alcohol. It's going to stink, but it's going to make you better. So at that point, we got no choice but to listen,
Right.
to believe what the doctor says, because it's going to stink.
So if
And
the officer said, I'm gonna have to lock you up, but it's gonna sting.
No. What I'm saying is the officer say, listen, I got to pat you down. We got to go through this process. It may sting, right? But if it is what you say it is, it won't
And
have
what, that's what I mean.
That's
right.
the point.
Well, the good thing, I guess, you know, to try to back up, but then say no, it don't really work, is that every interaction has to be recorded, so you could look at it yourself.
But why
and
do we
see how your son is doing and whatever.
Why do we get to that?
No, I'm saying it's before it's supposed to catch the thing. What happened? Like it's supposed to be the minute cops get involved, it has to be on.
No, this is what I'm saying though. When you go to an attorney's office, go to a CPA's office, you go to a dentist's office, are they recording the interaction?
I don't know.
There's probably not. Right?
No, they're not. But
It's
what's your point,
My
though?
point is, you guys, the police have been around for what, 250 years, 300 years?
Mm-hmm.
What's different now that didn't exist back then that would require you to have a camera?
The actions have become
Accountability.
more detrimental.
Accountability.
And accountability. Yep.
Society has been forced to understand we cannot rely solely on their perspective, right? Because they've gotten caught with their
But
pants
it's
down
on
too
that
many
way.
times.
The cameras have also caught victim or whoever with
Yeah,
their
it goes
that's
both
not
ways.
the point.
saying
What
the
I'm
officer
saying.
touched me, the officer stole this. No, I'm saying the cameras
Preaching to
walk
the
right.
choir.
Work,
You're
both ways.
preaching to
Yeah.
the choir. The point that I'm saying is there was a time when if the officer said this, it was
That's what
nothing
it
else
was.
to talk about.
Yep.
But what has
Well, that
happened
was a
to
time
that?
of respect. Yeah, respect.
So where did that go?
I have no idea.
Well,
That's the point that I'm
That's a
making.
loaded question.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's that interaction where the kid is, or the person, the civilian, has done nothing wrong. You did your job by running down on them, whatever, but you allowed that person and the people to view to walk away with another perspective. You did nothing to change the perspective. You understand what I'm saying? So now those people leave that interaction with a perspective. So then 3 weeks, a year, 2 months later, they see you doing that same, not you, but you know, what I mean, doing that same engagement righteously, but from over here, we don't know the details. We see the same thing that took place, which was wrong a month ago. And then that just starts to permeate through society. And what I'm saying is, police, and so I'm telling you, the whole family, and when we sitting at the table, I'm like, y'all do a horrible job demonstrating that you actually do good. Unfortunately, most people don't, from our communities, don't realize the police or see the police doing something good until it's a some sort of
Event, charity ball.
No, not even that.
when they
No,
call
it could be-
911.
Yeah,
When
no, no,
they-
no,
when
no,
they
yeah.
need- when they
That's
need-
right.
That's
right.
Or Steve Down?
Yes.
It's a
Yeah.
love-hate relationship.
Yes.
And when they come and when they
Yes.
save somebody that they care about, it's like, whoa, you're a good cop. No, I don't think it should be like that.
Right. You should always be a good cop.
And I'll end
That's true.
for example, when you have stuff that is so egregious, let's take Abner Louima.
Louima.
Yeah. That was
I
a
don't
bad
understand why, like,
That was-
when a cop gets shot, you get the cops picketing, blah blah blah. This is we're not going to stand for this. But when something so egregiously happens, where's that energy,
Yep.
right? Where's that?
Before my time.
And see, so that's why you wind up having cameras and
Exactly.
juries don't accept police testimony as it is because there's been this erosion and fueled by accountability. Every other profession has accountability. Like I didn't like the way she handled my file, whatever. I'm gonna go to the grievance committee. Okay, we have to deal with that. But it seems like perception-wise, when you hold cops accountable,
How dare you? Why are you doing this? He's a problem.
nah, bro, you gotta deal with accountability like everybody else.
This is true.
That's it.
So one of the things that you mentioned, which probably piggybacks what we're talking about, is we're talking about youth and their lack of respect for authority.
Problem.
So that feeds into what we're talking about.
Facts.
Police are
100%.
authority.
Yes, they
Yeah.
are.
So if youth is not respecting that, I mean, they barely, if at all, respect their parents.
Right.
That is true.
Right. And now I'm gonna give you the other side of the coin. They're not social workers, and they're not there to teach you how to be a citizen, right?
Who's this?
Who's
the
not?
police?
Who's the
Oh.
police? Oh,
The police,
okay.
they're not teachers, right? So, and then when you have these broken and splintered homes, like this, you get these kids out there that are learning literally. Again, we're gonna keep coming back to all that data that's coming in. To your point,
The phones, the internet.
yeah, all of that stuff.
But
that's
they don't
coming in.
always have to be from splintered homes.
No,
But
I'm
oh,
not saying. I'm
okay,
just saying,
okay.
you know, so, but what I'm saying is, the police have a resource. We know they have this resource. Talking about training and education.
But here's the thing.
that the
Here's
public may not have.
Well, here's the thing. Because if I am a police officer, and I represent some police officers,
Right.
if I'm a police officer, and what happens is I pull somebody over,
Right.
and you, it happens to be you, you're respectful, you stop your car, you put it in park, you do the things you
Do the
said you're
things,
going to
right.
do. But what if I'm pulling over some young kid and I say, you know, okay, put the car in park, and they take off? There's no training for that. I'm not expecting the guy to drive off. Right, so what?
There actually is training for
There
that.
is training
They
for that.
train you to
No,
chase them.
No, here's
I get
the
what you're
training I'm
talking about. I
talking
get
about
what
is
you're saying.
the
That's
training. I
easy.
can't train.
Unexpected.
Right, I can't
That's
train.
unexpected.
I can't train somebody to respect me.
Right.
I can't train. I'm thinking I'm the authority.
Right.
I'm the authority. I told you license and registration. You step on the gas. You keep going. I'm not supposed to chase
Right.
because you can't always chase in
can't.
in a community. But I'm expecting somebody to at least listen and abide by authority.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
Yes. I guess this is where I was trying to go with the whole doll situation.
Okay.
It's a flip side because they're supposed to learn it at home. They're supposed to learn. I'm talking about the kids
Supposed to learn what at home?
in terms of respect and
respect.
authority.
But
right?
they're not.
No, I know that they're not.
Oh,
which
okay.
which is why we have not just with the police department, but also just with authority in general. They're not
Yes.
learning these
Correct,
things, right?
correct.
And so it really starts from young.
So what do we
You know, another
Do
thing-
about
Everybody got
One
everybody got
thing that
to.
we didn't mention.
Yeah.
Somebody that probably speaks more, maybe 20 or 30 or 40 times more to your children than you could be the person, depending on what genre of music they listen to, the videos that they're watching.
yep.
You see what I'm saying? That's their
Okay.
teacher.
Yeah,
Their
they're being
teacher
influenced
is
by that as
a
well.
lot of stuff.
Yeah.
you know,
Listen,
like-
now I'm gonna say nah too.
Well,
Nah, I'm gonna say no. Nope.
You're an anomaly.
No, he's not. No, he's not. No, I'm gonna disagree with that too.
I put
Absolutely
the
not.
Videos with media. To me, the videos, news, to me, they're all in the same bucket. It's a visual thing you see, and then you see.
Yeah, I mean, he
Listen,
raised a
listen.
real good point.
No, it definitely. No, you're right. You're right. My sons are at the age where they watch these videos, they listen to this music, but they
real.
no, they listen. What I'm telling you is, see, this dad, me, myself, I'm a graduate of UNC, the University of Corrections. And I gave them enough time to learn something, to teach my kids something. That's why I'm able to sit here and speak to y'all today. You know what I'm saying? Because I learned something. So I have to pass that to mine. And they got to know the real from the nonsense. And if you want to go do that, let me tell you something. Let me tell you what I had to tell my son one time while he was growing up, as he learned how to start dealing with young girls. And he didn't want to take a bath. You know how boys are. Sometimes they don't want to take a bath. They want to go party and chill and hang out. When they're young. And I asked my son one time, I said, yo, listen, if you ever decide or to go out and you meet one of these girls at this party, and you decide, she said, yo, I want to give you a kiss. I said, if she smelled like you, what are you going to do? That's a real question that I asked my son. If she smelled like you, what are you going to do? You know, he said to me, Dad, you right. And from that point on, I never smelled him again. You know what I mean? But what I'm saying is, like, you got to teach them. You got to, what you teach them is what you learn. You know, we pick up everything from our parents, from where we've been, and things that we've been through, whether it's real or fake or nonsense or whatever the case, but it's what we learn.
What about the segment of society that doesn't have anyone to teach them? How do we,
That's where.
No,
That's
we're
where.
always learning.
Look,
We're
I tell
always
you what.
learning, though.
That's
We're
where
always learning.
organizations
We're
like
always
the one I'm
learning.
involved in, Free Promotion, American Youth Officials. I'm a referee. I have been for over 20 years. I wear the zebra stripes. I'm out here with these children. I'm in the office with us, teaching us how to do what I do. So that's where we start at, one way or other. Whether
so what you're saying is, so it's up to society to shoulder that burden at that point.
just
right?
like it's up to us to decide on when we're gonna take our health in our own hands or not.
No.
You're right.
What
You,
I'm-
no, yes.
Yeah,
I'm
right?
saying yes.
So that now dovetails back to my point. Police, at least they should know this since they're working in society. That's their 9 to 5. They should know that these wrinkles, these cracks and crevices exist, and that people do fall through. Now I get it. You gotta go home at the end of the day, right? And it's not like people are wearing signs saying, "Hey, I'm gonna try to kill you," right? So I got that, but just like you have an idea of when a client comes in, you want them to have the requisite documentation, be able to answer your question. But the reality is, they forgot this document. Oh, the way they described it to you over the phone, it's different now. And in spite of that, you still have to be the professional that you are. And it seems too many times like PD gets they get
the
some sort
exception.
of exception. But well, he told me to go blankly blank myself. So that affected your
Professional
badge,
courtesy?
yours, like, was it a force field? Like, why do your training still not trump that?
So
we know
let me ask you a question. Let's just say, and I'm speaking on the behalf of pretty much the officers. I'm not an officer. I'm asking questions as a human being. We in the street, and you're not an officer. We're talking trash,
Right.
talking in the street, and I say all kinds of nonsense to you, belittle you, family,
Right.
Make you feel away, like
Right.
knock his head off,
Right.
and you feel it.
Right.
Now, what if you're an officer, and that same expression is felt to you? Because from what and I don't know for sure, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff. I don't know if they give you that kind of training, that emotional characteristic training where you get to, sociably understand how people is coming off and how to deal with their mental illness, because they don't do that right now.
Tio. So let me speak to that, right? And again, just reality, right? You take a client to murder trial, they blow trial. Now you got to that's an emotional. Now client is looking at you. She still has to be who she is, right? I tell a client is used to getting $20,000 refunds. I do his tax return. He owes $15. I'm still required to follow my ethics and morals, right? You have to control yourself, right? And so in his job description, I keep saying you, but I'm not targeting you.
No, I know, my brother.
All right.
We're having a conversation.
Yeah, in the job description, it says you're going to deal with EDPs, right? So as a thinking, reasonable person, I can't apply these rules and procedures universally because this is a rational thinking person. This EDP is by definition not.
You mean
Here's
emotionally distressed person?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So
Yeah,
here's what I think you're talking about or speaking to. I think you're speaking to the ideal.
Yes,
You're
I
speaking
am.
to the ideal
I am.
because there are professionals, lawyers who clients say something to them, and lawyers yell at them, tell them to get out of their
But then
office,
society will immediately chastise that attorney as not being professional.
fine. But what happens is, and one could argue that, right, as an attorney, there are stressful environments. But it's not a stressful environment on an 8-hour shift.
Facts.
Right?
I agree.
So, and
agree.
and the reality is, I have, as a police officer, I have a firearm for a reason,
Right.
because people shoot at us and they shoot at other people.
Yes.
So I have a firearm to protect, right? So one would argue that I'm under stress at least 8 hours a day,
Okay.
and if I'm lucky, I don't take it home with me.
Right.
So you want me to understand. Not necessarily an emotionally disturbed person, but I may pull you over and you may have had a bad day.
Right.
Your wife may have just left you.
Yeah.
And you're not happy.
Right.
And you want me to understand something.
Yes.
Okay.
I
You
do.
want me to understand. You
Yes.
want me to forget that I have my life, that I'm a human, that there are issues that may have impacted me throughout the day before I got to you. You want me to forget that. You want me to put that aside because I'm the professional. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a magic act.
No. So now
Let him
this is what I'm
finish.
saying.
Let him finish. Let him finish.
Kazam.
No,
Wait.
No. And like I said, and all of you, I could understand clearly what you're saying. And Thomas is very good at explaining what he's explaining. But there's certain things in life, and I'm not belittling what you're saying. I joined at 32 years old. I was a grown man. I went through everything. I went through every hood, South Side, base, this, that, this, Harlem, this, that. So, I'm not like someone that raised in whatever and taking this job. I saw this one side, now I'm on the other side. So it's one of those things where, unless you're one of us, and people don't like that, unless you're one of us, you can't fully understand all the nits and crannies, and you don't have to. As a citizen, you have the right not to, and think the way, however you think. But for me, I see both sides. You know what I'm saying?
So to that point though, right? Like
It's not a perfect science.
That's facts, right?
But when it's not, no, it's facts. But just like you said, it's not making donuts or making cookies. In my job, not a perfect service. Someone may die.
Right.
It's not a perfect science.
Right. So
Right or wrong.
what I guess what I'm saying is, first of all, one of the reasons why, despite, because when I was in high school, we could take the test at like 16. You just had to be, I think, 21 on the academy, right? One of the reasons why I didn't take the job is because I knew I didn't like interacting with people, right? So it's in the job description.
I don't see that, Thomas. Now you're gonna sell that to us.
Yeah.
Now you don't
Yeah.
sell that.
He was younger back then.
I'm not joking.
So I know, like, to my point, right? I expect to tell a client something. I'll tell them, do you understand? They'll say, no, I'll explain it again. But after a while, I have no other way to explain this. You're going to have to figure this out on your own. Your job is hard. You can't necessarily take that approach because that has consequences. Well, then the guy goes down there and kills somebody. Well, why didn't you? This society says, well, why didn't you do this? So I get that. I knew very early on I didn't have patience to like deal with people. So that's not an industry that's going to work well for me, right? I think too many people take that job as a result of other circumstances in their life.
I agree.
Right? And therefore may not
You
be,
shouldn't have took it.
that's my
That's
point.
true.
And may not be the best mentally or for whatever reason, may not be the best candidate for the job. Now, what I'm saying is now you signed up for this. This is the BS that comes with this particular industry. Correction officers as well, right? This is what comes with it, right? And you no one put a gun to you to sign up to it. So I get into this with my sister all the time. She's on the job, right? So she said, she's when they say, Black Lives Matter, I say Blue Lives Matter. I said, stop, cut the crap, right? Because if a cop says, hey, someone's thinking about shooting at me, there's 1 million cop cars there in less than 15 seconds. Boom, they're there. Oh, they're there. God forbid if something happens to the cop, there's all kind of remembrances and everything. But if Joe Public gets shot at you, hopefully you get a cop car there in about 10, 15 minutes. And then you get one, maybe two cop cars there, unless one of the cops get into an argument with a bystander on the side of the street. Then they'll come in. So society tells us every day that certain lives are more or prioritized than others. So my problem is when the guy that probably took this job because he knocked some girl up and she's having twins and he can't cut it, I'm gonna join PD. Right now, you're placing this huge burden on someone that probably shouldn't be there. And then when that guy makes a mistake, this is the point I'm getting to. The cult-like function that's predicated, by well, you never did the job, you don't understand it. That kicks in, and now we gotta protect him. Because if we don't protect him, we could be held sometime down the line. That could be us in that situation. That's the problem that I have, right? Because if he's bad, he makes us look bad.
True, but then the thing is that we do need numbers, and people don't want this job. They have a recruiting problem.
Why?
And it doesn't matter.
It does matter.
The job.
It does matter.
They don't want the job.
But it's affecting the people. That's why they don't want the
They're
job.
not fixing what it is to make people want to
right.
stay. People are retiring in droves. You understand what I'm saying?
From NYPD?
I
For
understand
for it not to become a
behind that.
safety problem, the city has to operate at a certain number. We're below numbers, so nobody wants the job.
I can tell you.
So it's almost like we happy you came. As much not qualified, and
Thank you for coming.
I need somebody to sit next to me. Not gonna let me go
but
by myself.
We're talking why though. We're not talking solution yet. We're talking why. Why? Because the kid that got hemmed up on the corner because he checked the boxes, he's allowed to leave that interaction with this taste in his mouth. And the neighbors and everything that were there, they got to leave that interaction with that taste and that permeates.
Collateral damage.
And that's not acceptable.
Yeah, because you can't have collateral damage
You see what I'm saying?
in your home. They're
No.
like these neighborhoods
You
are
just give
home.
up at that.
So when you say collateral damage, and that just takes every mind state that lives in these areas. We at war.
My brother,
So if we at
you know
war,
what
so that means my response
You know what
has
happens
to be
when the hood
warlike.
knows the cops ain't checking them the way they used to?
They
That
don't.
means the
They
guns
don't.
are on them. It's in their
I
girlfriend's
hear-
purse.
I hear what
It's
you-
next to you.
You
see,
Because
now
the
you-
fear is gone.
I got what you're saying.
Like I said,
But
I'm
remember,
born and raised in New York.
but you also the man
I
that says
think
you strongly
everybody
believe
has a
conspiracy
valid
theories,
I
point.
do.
so that you know what we stand against. As a conspiracy theory, real or not, we outside. We are against the man.
This is what I'm
Like,
saying.
That's a version of respect too.
But this is what I'm saying. This is what
So
the
But if
reality
you
of it
respect
is.
for the cops and everything, then I don't care about him.
That's not
But
what
wait,
I'm
but
talking about.
wait. Should respect come with fear? Like
In
I
the
have
Bible,
to fear?
it does.
So
No, I'm
here's
talking
what
about
happens.
that kind of fear.
No.
I'm talking about respect and fear.
No, listen.
What
So
about
so
Buddhists?
so you
I'm
mean
talking about respect and fear.
no, I'm hearing you. Let me understand. So I, as a citizen, should be fearful of the police in order for the police to feel that I
Not that
am respecting them.
Like, I'm
What-
afraid of my dad. I don't think my dad's gonna kill me. I'm scared to death of my dad. But it's not that kind of fear.
What kind of fear are you talking
Like
about?
I just told you.
What is that?
Like almost, how can I put it?
You said the
So,
Bible.
yeah,
I'm waiting to hear this
so
biblical
this-
fear. What this is like? I'm waiting
No,
for
the
this.
Bible.
one.
I understand what he's saying. I understand.
Yeah, but you.
It's a way of speaking. You know how in English
Yeah.
one word red means the color, but red also means I read something. But red, you have the word and it has different meanings.
Oh, sure. Okay. So
the
what?
fear
What
that
are
I'm
you
talking about is not the fear.
Which one are you
of
talking
someone
about?
Maliciously gonna kill you. It's the fear like of your dad. Yes, Officer
Okay,
O'Malley.
okay.
I'm afraid of him, like I'm afraid of my dad. So I ain't gonna
So-
wear the marijuana
So
around him.
But I done seen
because I
video
fear
of
him.
Officer
The problem
O'Malley
ain't no
beating the
Hang
kid
on,
up.
hang on, hang on, hang on.
Respectful, not
Hang
that
on.
he's gonna kill me.
Hang on. 1 second.
Go ahead.
Let me Thomas interject here.
So the problem is that respect that you just described.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is we've seen Officer O'Malley actually kill and then lie about it. And then we've seen the guy
And that's
standing
a one.
next to Officer
Yeah, but that's
O'Malley.
one-offs. It's not
Just
the
the-
whole force. I know. It's
Stop.
one-off.
Stop.
Right.
Okay, so because a
You can't
plane
do that.
falls down, I'm never gonna take a plane. It's that kind of thing.
But now,
It's
I'll
like
take-
that
I'll ride a
incident
bus.
you
Let me-
saw?
let me-
Okay,
let me
I was
respond
with
to
yellow.
that.
How many other people got
Let me
a piece of
respond.
wood stuck up their
Let-
butt?
let me
It
respond.
happened that I know of one occurrence.
Let me respond.
But every cop is gonna.
Let-
I should fear.
Listen,
that
let-
Officer
No,
Ward just
no,
didn't
no,
make me in the
let me
closet
respond
and
to
stick
that.
a broom up my anus
Hold on.
because this other cop did it. No, I'm not.
But look,
no,
they don't
absolutely.
even
Let
carry
me respond.
nightsticks no more. How about that?
Let me respond to it. I'm going to take it out of that.
They don't even carry them
I'm
no
going to
more.
give you another situation that's different, right? And we probably all can kind of see this and understand this. So, the night that Obama won in 2008, right? My son was like, Dad, why is grandma crying and everything? She's getting too involved in this stuff, right? I said, don't worry, kid, you'll understand this later on. Then when what's the name lost? Just recent
Harris?
no, what's her name? Clinton's wife.
Clinton.
Oh,
Hillary.
When she lost, he was like, I don't understand why people are so upset. I said, listen, kid, you gotta understand, for almost 400 years, that was an anomaly. Because when you were born, it takes on a different perspective, right? In your time, you've seen a black man become president twice.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen white lady run for vice presidency, and he didn't know at the time, but you're going to see another black woman run all before you get out of college.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying is his perspective, because he was standing there when that one plane crashed down. Yeah, he may process that differently than someone who's had a much broader experience. The problem is that man who has the broader experience and the kid who just has
came
that much
outside.
experience,
Yeah.
they're all mixed in society. And this is the curveball, right? You guys have to deal with that, right? And we understand that, right? It's hard, right? But shit, it was hard putting a man on the moon and we did that. Why can't we fix that?
I'm not even sure we did that.
There you go.
Remember, I'm
Okay,
just-
all right. So
Conspiracy theory, that's all I'm waiting for.
How do you have a flag blowing in the wind and there ain't no wind there?
Okay.
We're gonna
Talk to him,
fly-
Jeff. Talk to him.
Let's take a break and then we're gonna come back.
Yeah, that'd be
Okay.
fun. Yeah,
Yeah. No.
yeah.
Thanks for having that break. I guess we needed it. Here's probably the $1 million question. There is a perception. There's a perception that black men are angry. You heard it, the angry black man
Of course.
concept.
Absolutely.
Is that an accurate perception?
I don't think so either. I can see why it can be
Why?
because life be lifing, as they say, right? Life be lifing.
Okay.
So, and what I mean by that, hence we just finished talking about the things with officers and coming up in the neighborhood and the community as black men and black children. These things make us angry. Coming up, we the abuse in our families, everything. We have to talk about everything. It's not just NYPD issues. We have mental issues. We have family abuse. We have financial issues. We have work issues. We have issues. Hence, life be lifing. So these things,
But life be lifing for everybody.
right? But see, sometimes certain people, and I tend to talk about the people that I know, which is us. And I mean, I am a human, so I guess I could talk about for all humans.
Okay.
Men, we like to take care of things. Every man loves to get their own money. Every man loves their man cave. Every man loves their house. Every man loves their car. Every man loves whatever toy they like that entertains them, whether it's through the physicalities of the reality of life, through going to church, whatever it is, we enjoy that. So when we can't do those things, or we can't provide, or we can't get dinner, or we can't buy groceries for the family, we feel away. We become angry.
Okay.
So my take on that, I think, is that stems from the environment that we grow up in, right? So when I was coming up, like you couldn't, being happy was equated with being soft and being picked on, right? And so, give you a perfect example, right? In my neighborhood, because my people had city jobs, we were looked at like we had resources, right?
Okay.
And so once a summer, I had this, not proudness, but I had to smack the you know what out of somebody. You know, around March, April, we start coming back out to play basketball at the park and everything. And I would have to smack someone because, again, they would forget that, that I'm in the same crap as you, but because, I got to be back on the block because if my mother, my grandmother doesn't see me, they're going to call my father, one of my uncles, then I got to deal with that. Mm-hmm. So that it gets interpreted as, "Are you soft? You can't come over here." Like that's every now and then, once a summer, I would just remind them, right? Now, I worked hard. I worked hard, and I kind of go back and forth with myself about this sometimes. But my son and my daughter, they walk, hey, everything is great and gravy or whatever, because they don't identify with that, right? Mm-hmm. And so no one would think those, and now I'm not talking about my son and my daughter, but those kids or people that come up in those environments, they wouldn't describe them as being angry, right? But me, my son will describe me as angry because I don't have patience, and when I hear or I feel like someone is hustling me, I get aggressive.
So the angry black man has different meanings amongst everyone.
Yeah, in my case, like someone who doesn't recognize it may describe it as being angry. But what I'm saying is, listen, get to the point and get on, because I have stuff to do.
Mm-hmm. Right? Go ahead. Please.
They have this on YouTube. They have these the Arabs, and they do pranks, and they did pranks in the white community. They did pranks in the black community. They did pranks in the Asian community, and it wasn't a study, and it wasn't. But I was treating it as that, just looking, and it's just so funny. Like the same pranks that they would do, they went into let's say Main Street or somewhere, where heavy Asian, whatever. My man just went up. It was in the mall. He sat on the dude's lap. It took him. There was other people there on the Asian in his lap. He sat on the lap. There was no instant push off. There was no instant whatever. Maybe fear, whatever it is. And then he's just there, and eventually whatever. He did it in the white people neighborhood, and it was a different way. But in the brothers was talking, and someone even hinted like they was gonna do something, a beatdown was coming. You know what I'm saying?
But let's go deeper, right? So why? Because it's like in that area, you expect anything out of normalcy.
That's right.
Is a possibility to go there.
It's a threat.
So you know what? I'm gonna meet you there. Right?
That's it.
I'm gonna do it. That's it. Right? And so I had these conversations with my son. He's like, "Dad, why are you so aggressive?" I said, "Listen, you don't understand this, right? But I will attempt to stop a situation short. If as soon as I see, this is shenanigans, I'm gonna stop it right now. I'm not gonna wait for it to get there, right? And that's one approach, right? And it's an approach that worked for me coming from where I came from. I would say that's not the only approach. You can fall back and take a more passive approach, and to divert it from going where you think it's gonna go. It's just it's been embedded in me. Mm-hmm. If you allow someone to hit you one time and you don't do anything, every time they see you, they're gonna hit you.
That's right.
So you know what? When you pull your hand up like that, like you want to hit me, I'm gonna get as many hits off you as I can, and we just.
But doesn't that make people fearful of you?
Yes, and yes.
So by way of example, if I'm sitting, you're in a conference room,
right.
There's a discussion, and the discussion gets kind of what we were before the break,
right.
A little heated. Right. Somebody looking at it on the outside said, "Wow, man, why are they so angry? It's like really aggressive in here," and it makes people fearful.
Right.
Do we want people to be fearful of us?
So this is kind of the point that I was making a little earlier, right? Okay. Concept is the same, right? I know what the perception can be, right? Okay. And I'm cognizant of that.
Okay.
And so when I'm dealing with people, I'm constantly cognizant of it. So
Do you do something different?
yes, I do.
What do you
So,
do?
I'll talk softer. I'll smile. I'll soften up my face. Like I've been in
Give
corporate
yourself
all
an
my life,
evaluation.
right?
Give yourself a nice little
I got
psychological
my
evaluation.
height, my skin complexion, my weight and everything. So I will talk softer. I'll try to soften the approach. The essence or my point is not going to change, though, right? But
Okay.
I will tailor it to the audience or the situation.
Because you recognize.
Yes.
You recognize.
But
Go
playing
ahead.
devil's advocate, I would say that that's a cultural thing
What is?
in the black male culture.
What is?
That of being on, hey,
Stop.
bro, why you looking at me for?
Stop, hold on.
You know, but you look, there's a New York thing, and this is a joke. This is a running joke with comedians. New Yorkers, we got that thing. If you visit, because I visit different states and stuff, and then let's say I'm making blanket statements, but in New York, we got this from our hip hop era in the 90s. If you go, yo, what you looking at?
Look.
Why you looking? Just for looking.
Check.
You can go see black places.
No.
And you love it.
Check time, hold on, check.
Wait.
I got a funny one. My cousin, older cousin, he moved to Atlanta. And this is in the 90s again. And he told me because he was in Rockland, but I was the city cousin that he had. And he's older than me, one of my favorite cousins. He told me, he said, Jeff, when you come down, brother's gonna look at you. I'm like, and what? Then we'll deal with it, whatever. He said, not in that way.
What? Oh, you talking about?
I said in Atlanta,
Oh.
that they're gonna, but he felt because of a culture thing, he had to prep me, and he's right, like the looks that you get, like, you know what I mean? Like someone to kick it to you, whatever the case is, that you might not have been used to where you're from,
I see.
but it's a norm somewhere else. So it's this like common sense. No, it's not. Like different cultures and different stuff.
But
That's
so
the
wait,
culture
are
there.
you saying that culturally black men are just basically angry? Is that what you're
In
saying?
New York, it's a thing.
Really?
They would get into
Really?
fights just for
No,
looking.
wait, hold
What
on.
you looking at?
Hold on.
If you go Bensonhurst in the late in the 70s in the early 80s, we weren't there. You look too much at somebody, one of them Italian boys, they would say, yo, what's your effing problem, right? I think it's a low income area. It's the lack of resources, and you think everyone is out to harm you. So you respond accordingly, because when you get out of those environments, society kind of lets you know that that's not what.
But,
we're
but,
doing.
hold on.
Right.
Yeah,
you're
but
bugging.
see, when you grow up in this society, in our community, where you wake up and go outside every day, and every day there's that person or persons outside that want to harm you, want to rob you, want to steal from you, want to kill you. I'm just saying,
Wanna jump
like he's saying, I'm being devil advocate here,
Right.
and they want to do all these things. How do you expect me to be? Shall I not be angry? I should be upset at this. I should be infuriated. So now when you come to talk to me and you say, and you could be asking me if I'm hungry.
Right.
You could be like, what's up, brother? How you feeling today? You good? I'm like, what you mean I'm good? You good? You know the response. You know the response. You know the response.
Listen, like my son, right? So my son will say, someone will come and someone say, good morning. Yeah, I ain't got it, right? And I was like, dang, she just said good morning. I said, yeah, man, they're going to sell you something. Start talking and trying to sell you something. They're going to try to rob you or something like that. And I don't have time for that, right? That's a product of being the
Of our
environment from
environment.
where I
It's
come
like the culture.
from. Because he
So-
doesn't even recognize
So wait a
it.
minute. So black men, we're just talking about black men now,
No, okay, yes, okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
have to move through the world as if they're under attack?
No. It's when you
Doesn't
come
have
from
to.
that environment. Because my kids,
Well, that's what I'm
their
asking.
friends,
Yeah,
that's
they don't.
not their approach.
Right.
And my
right.
cousin
So-
from Rockland County,
That wasn't his
So
approach.
now
But
guess
I'm
what?
born in the five
Now when we
boroughs.
go
Okay,
we
okay.
go away, how we was talking about earlier, how we
Right.
went to Jamaica, we went
Right.
here and this, that, and the places, right?
Right.
Like he said, we go out of town with that New York State of mind. We got I don't care wear clothes, we can wear our Timbs with the
Right.
short,
Like a
right?
sucker.
But and we always got the mentality.
Right.
I gotta make sure I stay with, because out of country they might try to kidnap me.
Right.
We never know. They want some money.
Right.
So as soon as somebody come to them, be like, yo, or very nicely bring you food, or how you look good
You
in
have
this.
to adjust.
You gotta adjust, but
I'll tell you.
but do you adjust immediately, or do you adjust after that first thought? Like, yo, what they want from me?
You gotta catch yourself.
Definitely. Like, I'll take it even simple. You go down south, walking down the road, people wave.
Oh
They
yeah,
drive
that's
by.
very different.
And I gotta kind of tell when they wave, like, oh, I'm down
Yeah, how
south.
easy.
Hey, what's up? I'll give it back. But if I'm walking up Hillside Avenue and somebody wave, well, now I'm on guard
Yes.
and ready to go.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes, really.
Really?
In the city.
And are we saying?
Well, we could be
Wait.
Chicago. Let's go
Florida.
Chicago, Detroit.
And we're saying this is in urban cities?
Yes,
Only if you
yes.
grew up in urban cities?
Yes.
You mean, oh, no, hang on. You
Okay.
mean I cannot find another black man who lives in an urban
We
city?
don't speak in absolutes.
Okay, okay, all right. So it is not a cultural thing then if we're talking it's
No,
not
that's what I'm
absolute.
saying. I think it's more of a socio-economical thing,
Yeah.
right? Because
I would,
Within-
I would
within-
agree with
within
that. I
your-
would agree with that.
yeah, if
But,
it's
but,
so
but,
fat,
but within your
culture,
own, no, then you're within your own families. Like if I had 4 other brothers up here who different in some respects.
Yeah, they might have grew up in Spring Valley. They come outside and be like, hey, and make hey,
That's
and
what
bring
I-
apple pie.
No, no,
Totally
no.
different.
But even in the city, let's say you have somebody grew up in Flushing.
Okay. Even then, so yeah, I mean, so again, we're talking about the norms and not because there'll always be the aberrations, right? That'll always be there, right?
So you're saying that's the aberration, not
Yes.
that's not the norm.
Is
The norm is that there are angry black men. That black men are angry. That's the
Well, no,
norm.
no.
That's
Well,
what you're
that's
saying.
that's
I
the
think that's the
percep that's the
perception.
perception.
Oh, that's the
Right,
perception. But I asked you if that was an accurate perception, and you said
I think being
No,
on
no, he
guard,
said
being on
socio-
guard as a
so-
black man would be more of an
socioeconomics.
accurate possession.
Being on guard,
being
but
on
the-
guard, always aware of our, what's around us.
I got that.
And-
But the perception is that
That
you're
you're
angry.
angry.
Right.
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 I don't subscribe to that. I
Okay.
understand how it can be interpreted
right.
that way. So that's why I'm.
Well, this is why I wanted to use the example. Before we broke, it was a heated conversation here. As a
But-
matter of
but it
fact-
wa- but we
hang
weren't
on,
angry.
Hang on. Let me finish.
Oh, okay.
I know you weren't angry. The people looking on the outside said, "Oh, during the break, whoa, it was like a little heated in
But
here."
see,
but here's
what,
the thing.
what people was looking from outside.
No, but my point is that that's why it's a perception. It's what other people see.
Right.
So you may not be angry. I didn't think you guys were angry at all. I thought we were having a nice conversation and folks were talking. It was lively, right?
So if we had brothers and sisters looking from the outside, like brothers and sisters sitting in here,
Uh-huh.
do you think they would have perceived us as being angry?
they did.
So if the white folk was looking in, would they have perceived us as angry
I
as
think
well?
they would,
So
absolutely.
the brothers and sisters, not to cut you off, but the brothers and sisters that was looking into this conversation
Yes.
and perceived us as being angry,
Yes.
they'd never been in any kind of in-depth conversation before?
Well, that's
I
not.
wasn't gonna go that route with it. I was gonna say they're not one of us.
What does that mean? And not
I
one of
wasn't.
you.
I just met him today.
I know.
I met him today.
I know you met everybody
Right? No, I'm
today.
saying today. But when you from the hood, you from the hood. It doesn't matter. And I'm not saying that. Listen, what I'm gonna try to tell you.
Okay.
I'm not saying that I'm, a gangster or that I was, whatever. I went to Catholic school and all of that.
Yeah.
But was I, in the Jamaica avenues and I was with my people and I felt like places where people would be scared of, I was there.
Okay.
And I'm in my element.
Okay.
And I know I know they're in their element. So it's like we're like-minded. So we can talk to each other and know it's not beef.
Right.
Because we know
Okay.
we get hyped like that.
And that's fine.
And someone
that's
that's, not
fine.
maybe Ivy League, maybe Carlton like, Will Smith's
But see, that's
brother,
the-
cousin or whatever, or something, some other thing. Then you'd be like, bro, they're about to blow. So
Wait,
they hide your
wait
wallet.
a minute. So he's Carlton like you talking about like somebody's like a nerd or something? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, no, I'm just saying if they're not us, they're not
I
gonna
think-
they're gonna be afraid.
Right. They don't. They identify with the
They
culture.
don't identify
right.
with the culture.
They're
What
gonna
does
say
that,
they're
what does
gonna
that
fight.
mean? What does that mean? Don't identify with the culture. What does that mean?
So that means someone who's not comfortable with a particular custom or set of norms from people that look like him would be comfortable with.
You got to give me that again.
So a person who's not comfortable with what a group that he would otherwise be a part of
Mm-hmm.
he or she doesn't identify with the cultural, what we consider cultural norms.
Even if they are black, even
Right.
if they look the
It would
same,
be a
I got
part
that.
of it.
and
Okay.
not from the
But-
same place.
Okay,
I got
okay.
a question. Do you think black men exhibit more aggression more than other I guess, other races?
Yes.
Good question.
Against
I
And I
give you
think,
that.
and I do
Yes.
think so, because
Yes.
even without even words, even when you look at sports,
Mm-hmm.
you could see it, right? But I don't think we're angry. I think we just need to be more disciplined, right? And I think we've been through a lot collectively, and I think sometimes in our environment, sometimes you feel like you have to flex a certain way, you have to walk a certain way because it's a form of protection, because you're in the perception of this environment is that it's dangerous, right? Because we buy into the garbage that they feed us also, right? So we buy into these concepts, and we're like, okay, I got to look this particular kind of way in my environment because I need to protect myself. I got to speak at a certain tone because it might, and I just think males understand this, right? But we got to get to a place, I believe, that we have to become disciplined and not worry about how we're perceived, but formulate a direction for ourselves, teach our children, become the example, right? And it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, right? Because the world is not going to understand your culture, even though the world steals from your culture all the time, right? So I just think it's this lack of discipline that we got to get to a place where we're more disciplined, we're more secure about who we are, we're secure about our history. We don't just look at our history as just slavery, but we look at the fact that you had
Accomplishments.
the accomplishments, whether it's the Moors who ruled Europe for 700 years, whether it's, the ancient Egyptians or Kemites, right? But all of those different things is going to create where we are walking in this world of a place of substance, confidence, and I think,
Less aggressive.
well,
I think that's
I guess
Yeah,
the aggression I could
And
understand.
I'm using your word.
Look,
You
listen,
said aggression.
The aggression I could understand it because of the environment, and it depends on the environment.
And it's not necessarily physical aggression, not physical
If you
aggression.
live upstate and you've never been to the Bronx, for example, right? You're going to perceive things differently, right? So I just think it boils back down to discipline.
The discipline.
Yeah.
And to jump in when he talked about the African education and so forth, but where did you get that? I didn't get that from kindergarten.
No,
to
I
graduated. You have to do it on your own.
No, you got to do it on
So
your own.
you know what's wrong with society?
Well, you can't expect
We're looking
anybody
at the
else to
thing, but
teach
we
us
gotta look
that,
at the
right?
whole thing is that things got to change. I'm not saying it's ever going to change. I hope it changes. In high school or elementary school, there was one time, and I always tell this story. I was like 13, 14. I'm driving with my dad. There was WBLS back then. In WBLS, it was Black History Month, whatever. They said, we're going to play Black inventors one after another with no commercials. Do you know I cried?
How are they gonna
I cried. No, they were listing the names. They were saying the names. This person created this. This person created this. Do you know? And I was in high school.
Okay.
That means I made it from kindergarten to 8th.
And did not know these
physically
things, right?
cried next to my dad. I cried because I didn't think we invented anything. I know about the Washington Carver peanut butter and whatever. That's about it. I didn't know. No, I cried because I didn't know. But see, that's not saying that education. If they had it at 5 years old, we don't know the astrophysicists. We don't know the lawyers. We don't know the. You know what I mean? Because they know that we did this before, so it's possible to have.
But
we always have this
hold on.
mentality
That
like
one
we're the
point.
first ones that's going to be a scientist.
That one
invent
point.
something.
To be an inventor, you got to be disciplined, right? So if you look at all the accomplishments, right, whether you want to go all the way back to Egypt and beyond, these guys were disciplined, right? So
that's
what I'm just saying. Knowing knowledge that they existed, it will put the battery on the back of a 4-year-old, 5-year-old black male or female or any other color.
Well, that's why
to know what you've done before. To not be like me, 14 years old, and now finding out that the first time. I can't quote what they are, but stuff like the first military this, the first tank, a whole bunch of stuff. I was like this.
But let me ask.
That's why I don't like watching any history movie on slavery because I think it just gets you stuck in this place, man.
Right.
Well,
You know what I'm saying?
before we get that, that's a nice segue because now I'm interested in. You're talking about discipline. You're talking about these are important things,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, are we saying that in our families, we should perhaps be teaching our boys to be
Absolutely.
less
Absolutely.
aggressive, not
No,
angry?
we should teach them discipline. We should
Discipline.
the first discipline
Okay.
the first discipline is what I started with in terms of autonomy over self, your health, because you got to be disciplined to do that.
But you're telling me that it's your environment that creates, you know, you
I mean,
kind of
they
being
give
on
it to you every
guard,
day. You just
right?
finished telling
No, it-
the
right?
phones, the
No,
internet,
it-
all the
it-
data,
it-
the
it is
intake.
the-
So
It's there.
how do you teach your kids then?
Example.
you have
Example.
But how? Wait,
It's
example.
all-
You
it's all
you
that
told
the
me you
thing-
were on guard.
You have
go-
to. Well,
how are you
I
teaching them?
because I
an
have to be
example?
on guard, so they don't have to be on guard. So when I'm on
But
guard,
aren't they learning from you?
but I'm on guard, so I take it as a sponge, and when I squeeze out the residue, it's all smooth.
But they're watching you.
But they have to watch me to
but
learn.
Renee, okay.
Yeah.
All right, you're walking down the street and you're with your woman and some guy jumps out to attack or steal from you, right?
Okay.
More than likely your woman is going to expect you to protect her,
Okay.
right? So I think as men, we're always constantly on guard, right? So when you take that and you put it in an environment and then you add the stereotype of this is a drug environment, this is a dangerous and bad neighborhood,
Okay.
right? Those men are going to constantly be on guard because it's a natural part
Well,
of
here's the
their-
thing. That's not a
as
man thing because if I'm in a particular neighborhood, I'm going to be on guard too. I mean, that's just a natural. That's just a natural instinct there.
The difference is male aggression, and I think we probably understand it from the perspective that you don't want to you don't want to well, some of us got guns in these neighborhoods.
well, I was gonna say, but look, but going back to Renee, yeah, let's cut you off, Thomas.
Yeah.
Even as she says, a black woman being in the neighborhood, you know, they got to be on guard too. So does that make you an angry black woman that you have
Well,
to be on guard?
that moniker has been
because
put on black women.
that is a title, that's a moniker, right?
Absolutely.
They have, as a black woman, I'm sorry, but you have the protection of the police force, right?
I do?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
What protection do I have?
Absolutely. We don't perceive, we don't, when it compares, in comparison to us, you know.
Hold on. You don't agree with that?
I want him to finish the sentence.
Okay.
Yeah, in comparison to us, you know, when the cops get called and we're involved, it's a life and death situation. We got to navigate through that,
Preach, brother.
right?
Here's what-
There's a lot. I mean, look, there are women
Here's
that
what
get,
here's what happens when officers, not to usurp your position, when officers show up on a scene when it's a black couple, and let's say it's domestic violence, you know who's going to jail?
The man.
Both of them.
both.
Both of them are going to
That's
jail.
what the
By
stereotype.
law, she's
what the
absolutely
statistic-
correct.
That's what the statistics.
But
say.
that's not what happens
Yeah.
usually when it comes to pick up a domestic violence. If she says he hit me, I don't care if both of them got
Yeah,
black
yeah,
eyes.
yeah.
If she say he hit me, he gone.
The reality is that it is not the way you think it is, because what happens is we're talking about male aggression. If I'm in some boardroom with, like I described before, and you know some guy is standing over me, and you know he's explaining his point, black man explaining his point, and he's being passionate about it. I can appreciate he's being passionate. My coworker may think, well, should we run for the exits? Because what's wrong with him? Why is he raising his voice? Why he's waving his hand? I'm saying, no. He's just describing the presentation about how we feed the kids.
So.
But what my question is that what is it we should be teaching our young men about that? Now I can appreciate when you say you are consciously aware of how you come off. You're a grown man, yes. But we have teenagers and some of our teenagers growing to be 6'5" even.
But discipline. I mean, look, you can't teach a teenager discipline. You got to teach them when they're young.
But you say then are we failing at discipline? Because
Yes.
Well, the
Yes.
proof is in the pudding. Yeah.
Yes.
okay, so
Look at
we're
the
failing at
kids. Look
discipline.
at the
All right,
kids.
so that kills that point. If we can,
Right. But we can't. No, but we can't deviate from
I'm
it.
not- I'm not
It's
there.
what's going to get us to a
I'm
place
saying
of
I'm not
wholeness.
there, right?
okay,
So to his point, yeah, it's more effective and it's probably easier to teach the concept of discipline to a developing mind, a younger kid, right? But society has a way of teaching you. So whether they're teenagers or not, they can learn this stuff, right? It's usually in prison, right?
well, we don't want that.
No. I know.
That's not. It should be the stand. I'm going to let society teach my
No,
kid.
that's not what I'm saying.
Oh.
I'm just showing,
Okay.
I'm giving the extreme to
Okay.
show that it is possible. So to say because they're a teenager, we can't cast them aside because society has a way of training them and we don't want it to go.
We don't
Correct,
want it.
correct.
Yeah.
What I'm saying though is, one, you have like my son is a big guy, right? Now his delivery is much softer than mine, right? And I think that's a product of not being in the environment that I grew up. In my environment, you had to say it, you had to mean it, you had to say it, and be ready to defend it.
To defend
right?
it. Yep.
Or you, the perception of you where you were soft
or
and
weak,
you would
yep.
have problems
Yep.
every day. And so that wasn't their experience. However, son, you're still black, you're still tall, and you're still perceived powerfully. You have to know how to convey your message and not allow it to get lost in the presentation.
But that's discipline.
But
you,
no,
you know,
I'm
but
agreeing
you're
with
teaching him discipline
I'm
because
agreeing with you. I'm
Okay.
agreeing with you. From the beginning. I'm
Right,
agreeing
right,
with you, right. So what I'm saying is that has to happen, right? And I think unfortunately, either the bigger you are or complexion, the darker you are, it places a higher burden on that individual to address and meet those requirements, or else they'll continuously run into these translation issues where
So what about black men who say, "Well, I don't want my kid to be soft. I don't want a
I would
soft
follow
kid."
that. What do you mean by that, bro?
I don't know. You use the word. What do you mean?
Because soft, for me, is someone who won't stand up for themselves.
Okay.
Right. So soft could be you turned in some. Your boss gave you a deliverable date. You turn in the work, and then, without you knowing, your boss says, "Hey, I'm gonna get this to the board of directors and tell them he produced it." Well, no, you need to have a conversation with your boss, right? And if you allow that to happen, just like the guys when I play basketball, if they do an intentionally rough foul, if I don't hit them back. Every other time I'm gonna get a foul. And so in that corporate environment, every other time a project comes up, you're going to be turning in deliverables and someone is going to be getting the credit on your back. And if you go for that, that's on you. And so what I teach them is no. You have to stand up for yourself. Because if you let that go, you'll be living with
You gotta
that.
teach them passive aggression comprehension.
So, either way, you gotta teach them a way that they have to be able to stand up for themselves. Now, to the point that I think we were making earlier, being from New York and we're all up on top of each other, it's almost baked in that no. We know we're gonna have to elbow and stand out because that's just the product. That's just the environment that we're in. You go down to the suburbs or down south where there's not as much density and everything. Well, you don't have to elbow and stand out as much to get your point across. The point is knowing, to your discipline, knowing that this stuff is out there and it's prevalent, you have to adjust to it. And that's the point.
So, are you teaching your kids discipline? Is that what you guys are doing?
Well, like he said, everybody,
Society will.
right.
Yeah.
And we don't want society to do that. My kids, he said something according to being big, and my kids have a lighter complexion. So, we grew up, for the light-skinned brothers here, light skin was soft at one point in time. We had to fight for the right. So now, that's the truth.
And
So
it may not make sense, it sounds funny, But a lot of people just automatically they think if you light skin, we had Albie Shaw.
Exactly. That's the Albie Shaw.
Dark skins, and that's why I turned into
I had it running.
I'm the most. All my friends are dark skinned. You know, I'm like the lightest out of all of them. So I'm the darkest. I'm not a. And then that whole the epithet, which is the negative connotation.
But it died down after a while. It died down.
I did want to put me in there, but I know I'm gonna feel. You know, like you know what I mean.
And that's what our kids now don't have to go. Like my son, he doesn't go through that. None of them. They don't go through our light skin controversy that we went through.
Well, they're still young.
Yeah, but it's non-existent. It's not today. It's different.
We have Drake. It's not a thing. It's not like the tougher than the other.
It's not. Yeah, not even close. Not even close. Not even. Because at one point in time, it was what yellow boys carry AIDS.
There was one time when Jamaican and Haitians were enemies. Now we love each other.
That's law. I remember that.
Wait, is that
true? That's true. That's true. Yes.
In the 90s,
Jamaicans and Haitians used to go at it. That is absolutely
true. But it's the bottom of the
true.
battle. We were both immigrants that came. So they fought. One spoke English, the other one spoke Creole. We would, at the time. But now it's an ultimate love. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying, Renee, that there's certain things that have changed.
Yeah.
Time
life has changed. Mm-hmm. Life has changed.
But so. That's what I started with, is constant
evolution.
Evolution, right? And so we, as your discipline, have to understand that one, life is always changing, and you have to recognize, okay, this is a particular change that I may have to navigate within,
absolutely,
and execute.
Right. And so the point I was making and acknowledging that things change, obviously, because it's probably been 20 years since I've seen a couple of you guys, so things have changed. Mm-hmm. And so things are going to change with your children.
True.
In 20 years. So what your perception is in terms of light complexion, dark complexion, whatever it is now, that may change in 20 years. So what you're talking about it confidently now, and I can appreciate that, but that may change.
True.
So, I take it as we like to cement trucks.
What do you mean?
The barrel.
Cement truck.
Turns
cement.
around.
Okay.
Mixes up the sand and the dirt and the rocks and comes out nice and smooth and being nice. So we're the cement truck. So we get all the dirt and the rocks and we going through all these motions, the ins and outs, the races, the light skin, the food and whatever. That's the whole process.
Okay.
So now when we lay out our foundation, it's our children walking on something like clouds.
Yes. Yeah. So let's.
But sometimes, Renee, I feel that the struggle makes you who you are too.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying?
Well,
like my dad came here with nothing, with no mom, no dad at 16, and he bought a house. He did this. He retired. He did that. I'm born and raised here, and I can hardly get the urge to want to do something. You know what I mean? So it's like the struggle sometimes makes.
Well, that was what I thought.
What did J. Cole say? It's beauty in the struggle, right?
Well, that is also the fact that people should do hard things. Because that's when I was asking about, whether the perception is that, our young people today are soft. I thought that's what folks were speaking of, because they haven't been through, there's no struggle, as you say.
There's no two-hand touch.
There's
stickball.
You were talking about that, right?
No handball. Climbing trees.
I kind of alluded to this earlier when I was talking with my son, right? There's a double-edged sword, right?
Okay.
So growing up the way I grew up, like when I meet somebody, I'm always thinking, what's the angle, right? What is he trying to get?
Okay.
My son and my daughters, that's not their approach, but I would like a piece of that to be in them. Like, wake up, wake up.
Right.
Yes.
The discipline is knowing how to, knowing one that you need to balance that act and where to draw or where to find that happy medium. Right. And I still struggle with that to this day. Like I like in the car with my son, we're going to buy his car. I gotta go all the way to we call it Connecticut. So we took the ferry over there, going in, and the guy saying, yo, if you're not here in 20 minutes. So I'm like, yo, we established a time. I'm en route. I had to take, so I'm making my case according to my son aggressively, right? So the guy says, okay, Mr. Kemp, I'm gonna wait for you, blah, 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 blah. And so I'm like, you're not doing me a favor.
Right. I'm bringing money to you.
So when we get off the phone, my son says, you know, Dad, you were right. You were 100% right, but you just sound so angry. I said, yeah. I said, you see, you're
Angry or
fortunate.
assertive?
No, that's the point.
Because
Right?
sometimes,
So I said-
sometimes people
I said,
can perceive.
You're fortunate that you could see it that way, right? I said, but the reality is I was standing my ground. I was being assertive, and I was letting him know I was not going to accept that from him.
But like you said, he had to make a decision. Like, should I tell Dad? Like, that was kind of assertive. I thought it was aggressive.
Well, no, we
but
talk.
no,
Yeah.
right. But what I'm saying is, to him, just like mine, they don't know that part.
Right.
They have no idea how to do that.
And
Even
that's-
when it comes to conducting
that's the
business,
environment.
Yeah.
they don't know
right,
that.
right.
And that's where we becoming teachers.
Right.
We have to
Right.
show them, like,
Right.
listen, our passive aggressiveness comes at a certain point, and it levels off where you have to comprehend certain things at a certain point as well.
And
A balancing that. That's like you said. How we teach them? We teach them with balance.
So let me tell you this last part. Like this, like the environment stays in you, right? So we're going to get his car. That 17,000. Right? So and the guy, got only cash from like what's one of them Instagram marketplace or something like that. One of those.
Oh,
social
like
media things.
Facebook
Okay.
That
marketplace.
one right there.
Mhm.
Right?
Okay.
So we going. So I told Thomas. I said, listen, we're gonna call this cat when we're about a half an hour out, right? And then we're not gonna tell him what car we're in. So he says, Dad, you playing games? I said, no. So I said, you see, you don't.
You don't know.
It's nighttime.
Mhm,
Do you
exactly.
know where you are? Like, do you know where to get to the police station?
Waiting for you right there in that car. There you go.
I said, how you know he's not laying on us with
Yep.
a bunch of guys to come out and rob us? Dad, why would he do that? I said, you're fortunate to be able to think like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think like that. I'm expecting him to have somebody there. Excuse me, I'm going to use some slang here,
Go right ahead.
right? Somebody there with a blicky looking out.
Now you got to explain that.
That's a hammer.
Okay.
The blicky.
Usually illegally too, right? So I'm expecting someone to be there looking out for their man.
Sure.
Right? And keep in mind, Thomas, I said, they know we're coming with an envelope full of money. So when we give him this money, he's going to have to count it. That's going to take some time. If he's focusing on the money, who's protecting him? He says, yeah, I never thought about it like that. I said, of course you wouldn't have thought. You never had to think it like that, right? I said, so just shut up and just let me know when we get about
Just go with the flow.
Out, right? I'm going to call the cat. We're going to spin the block a couple of times, and then we'll go and do some business.
Wow.
Right?
But I think the I don't think it's bad or good. I just think it's necessary. Sometimes you have to be.
It is.
You have to have a little
sure. You can't-
aggression.
you can't be-
Sometimes you have to kind of tone it down, right? And I think that's the interplay. It works better when it's a male female, because female kind of understand the other side. We sort of understand that now is not the time to play soft. We gotta push and be a little bit more assertive right now, So I just think it's just balance.
No, I got you. I mean, no one's expecting, there used to be a cartoon on Mr. Magoo. So no one is expecting you to walk through life like that. But
Mr. McGlue was blind.
Biggest glasses ever, though.
Well, he was legally blind.
so let me move on to another question, which is, what is your view about black politicians?
Okay. So again,
I want to stay out of this one.
see, it's the complex ones that are provide the most substance, right?
We'll take a
So I think the bar for the black politician for us should be significantly higher, right? Because they know inherently what the experience is, and they know what we need and what we're looking for, more so than their white colleague or counterpart. So we expect more from them, right? And when they don't show up or they don't do what we perceive that they should be doing, I have a greater animosity for them, because I don't expect him to do crap for me. right? I expect you, because I know they're going to make it harder for you to do for me, right? So I get that and I understand that, but you have to show up, right? You have to show up. And when I get the feeling that you're not showing up, I want nothing to do with it.
Okay. Now this is probably going to be our last question. So what do you guys? Any other thoughts on that?
No finance questions.
Yeah, I'm kind of afraid to touch that one.
Well, while you think about that, that Marlon's correct. I did want to bring up this whole cryptocurrency in terms of you
Don't
guys
understand it.
don't understand it. Okay, that's
And I've
fine.
been trying to.
Okay, and you're the accountant.
Yeah.
That says a lot.
Okay. All right, Marlon, you've got the
Oh, you
floor.
want to segue?
Well, what
yeah.
like Thomas is saying, very few people I think understand it.
Right.
So
Yeah,
you seem to have some understanding.
I
of
can
it.
account
Oh,
for it.
a little-
I can
a little-
tell you where it belongs.
Ah,
A little. Well, you know, they passed the what is that? FASB, the accounting
Standards board.
standard boards, how to place crypto, whether it's Bitcoin, on the
Right.
balance sheet, right? And it seemed like everything is shifting in that direction, you know. But my thing is this: as a community, we have to be able to not be the last all the time to learn certain things, you know, because the world is changing.
To that, I agree, right? But we have other systemic roadblocks that have to be dealt with before we get afforded the luxury of being first in something, right? Because we have people. Let's give it just a generic approach, right? You have a single mom, 2 kids. Government is saying, "Hey, we don't want you on social welfare, right? We want you to go work, right?" But then government says, if you don't get adequate care for those kids, we're going to label you a bad mother. So they say, okay, I'm not going to work. I'm going to stay home so my kids aren't. So I'm an adequate mother. Well, now you're a welfare queen, right? So we don't have the luxury of saying, I'm going to take care of these kids, solve this work economic issue. Oh, and also exercise my creative dreams, which may be fruitful or not, right? We have too many people in our economically depressed communities that are just trying to figure out how to keep the lights on.
You get it.
You know what
so
I mean?
you're saying that
Like my son, right? He don't have those concerns. Oh, he knows, he understands that stuff. Should I give him money so he can play with it?
Yeah.
oh,
Right?
he understands cryptocurrency.
Yes.
Okay, all
Yes.
right, all right.
I mean, if you think about it, right? So when the computer first came on board, a lot
Good
of us were,
Good example.
what's this?
What is this?
Why do I need to use an
Right.
email when I can just go to the post office?
Right.
When was the last time you went to the post office to send somebody, unless it's a big
Right.
package,
Yeah,
right?
and I've heard that
So-
argument a lot about cryptocurrency.
Well,
but
well,
let me tell you the issue that is, which is, I don't know if the United States is ever going to change its currency,
Good
meaning from
political reasons.
from the U.S. dollar to something that is kind of
That's their influence.
fair out there in the world. Now you may have some great understanding about that, but
That's
I don't
because
know that
you're
the
looking
U.S.
at
is
it-
going to
but
change.
that's because you're looking at it
Uh-huh.
not from a technological standpoint. You're looking at it from a currency, right? So
Correct.
So there are things that you could do using, because crypto is really what they call blockchain technology, right? And as we evolve further, it's going to become more and more important, especially as we use these smartphones, right? I mean, everybody's seen the deep fake videos and all of that stuff, right? The only way that they can really stop those type of deep fake videos is with the blockchain technology, which is it's a secured way of identifying what's actually real and what's not real, right? But generally speaking, I would say I look at crypto as a technology itself. So let's say I wanted to send Renee some money and I wanted to have the currency expire at a certain point, or I only want to have her use it in this location. You want to send your kids some money, and you don't want them to go to the liquor store. You could program the money.
But
So
here's my question: how do I pay my landlord in
yeah,
cryptocurrency?
no,
That's what
I-
people
I-
are dealing
That,
with.
okay.
Yeah, so that's
okay.
that's the question.
Okay. So
And we may not be able to explain
So
it in this segment.
I think Trump passed an executive order saying that, right, that there won't be any what they call central bank digital currencies, which is where China and a lot of these other countries are heading, right? But on the flip side, right, that's why I disagree with the point about the U.S. dollar, right, kind of thing. On the flip side, there is what they call stable coins, right, in crypto, which is it's equivalent to having a dollar in your pocket, but it's in digital form, right? So you could see the shift moving to a more digital form of currency, and maybe it's not going to be in our lifetime. Maybe it's going to be in your kid's lifetime, but you more and more and more you see the world and even this country heading in that direction, right? For example, there's a gentleman by the name of Reggie Middleton, right? He's an African American inventor, right? And he has a whole bunch of patents related specifically to crypto, right? He hasn't gotten a lot of notoriety out there in terms of publicly, but his invention, in my opinion, is the underpinning of crypto. So we are, as a community, involved in it some shape or form, right? And my thing is this, is that we have to put ourselves into the know, because too often we are behind, right? And so, and I don't know if it's because of fear, but I think even if we try to maybe take a course or stuff like that, because it's moving in that direction, and it's going to go there regardless if we're there. Just like I didn't grow up using this thing. I didn't grow up using a computer when I was younger, right? And I use this every day.
Right. I think you're right. We're going to have to break in a minute, but I think you're right in terms of people should be knowledgeable about what cryptocurrency is. But I also think, because I haven't taken a deep dive in this, I just looked at it. I have some clients who have they own cryptocurrency. They want to put it in their wills and that sort of thing. But you may want to, at least as part of my research, I have researched it, and I see that maybe tapping into Jeff's conspiracy theory, but there is this thought that African Americans seem to be the ones who are going for the cryptocurrency more so.
More so?
More so. So again, I haven't taken a deep dive, so I want you to take a look at that.
Yeah.
I want you to take a look at that information and that literature.
So I think from more of a political perspective, America's influence over the world is tied to our dollar.
Yeah, as a reserve
we
currency,
say,
yeah.
Right. If
Yeah,
you want to do
yeah.
business,
Yeah.
commerce,
Yeah.
you're going to do it in a dollar.
Right.
When you start getting into digital currencies, you start to move away from that standard.
I don't think they're going to move away from it.
No,
I just think they're going to digitize the dollar on blockchain, and I'm probably using. Yeah, I think they're going to digitize the dollar and blockchain, which makes sense as to, and you're probably going to see before the 4 years ends, before Trump's 4 years, you're probably going to see regulations headed in this direction. And in fact, the SEC, right, for the last 8 years or so, the SEC has come down on a lot of different companies, like crypto currency companies, and you can see now they've kind of taken a back seat, and now you're starting to see. I mean, I turn on CNBC and I see, Bitcoin ticker symbol, which I've never seen before, right?
Well,
So
you also, because we do have to take a break. You also, which was a surprise apparently, that Snoop Dogg was at a cryptocurrency
yeah, I saw that.
Trump's inauguration, and there was a
Yeah.
lot of blowback
Yeah.
on that. So apparently he's got his own Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, so you have Trump, not Trump, Snoop Dogg, and you have all these other guys who are promoting. But I think if we at least have to understand the technology itself,
You're saying we need to be in the game.
we need to
definitely
understand
do.
the
We gotta understand
technology,
what's going on.
understand the
Okay.
We definitely
technology,
do.
and then make an informed decision, right?
Okay.
Because tomorrow, if 20 years from now, if cash is non-existent,
Irrelevant.
then we're just gonna follow the same
Yeah.
the same.
Listen, as long as there is an underworld, a thriving underworld, you're gonna have cash.
No, oh.
Well, I mean, there's always been cash throughout every era
Yeah,
of life.
there
Whether
always
it was
have been.
coin,
That's what I'm
product,
saying.
trade.
That's what
There's
I'm
always some form of
Right?
fashion or something.
So until that technology is able to become as cheap and as packageable as the computer, right? There'll be a means to conduct commerce.
Right.
No, there's going to okay. For example, a lot of people worry about the traceability of crypto, right? They say I don't want anybody tracking my currency and stuff like that. Well, they have a thing called privacy coins, right? Right, like Monero, where I could send you a transaction, I could send Jeff a transaction, and no one can go on the blockchain and see exactly who I sent it to. So, which the last time I heard, the IRS was trying to crack that, right?
No,
So
the issue is not that I get that, but the issue is he has to, one, know that exists, and two, be confident enough
Yeah,
to conduct business with you.
and
in that form.
eventually he will, just like how like remember the computer when the computer first came about. I'm telling you, if you watch the old videos, they were like, oh, why do I need to send an email? And when I could go and mail it, and now, I mean, we can't live without this thing.
No, you're right. You're right.
But the problem that I see with like electronic, and all of that is the security, and then you could come up with somebody, and then just like in the movies and art imitates life. Whenever you see the movies where there's a mastermind, excuse lack of a negative connotation, nerd geek, whatever in his basement, that you bring something and say it's personal coin, there's someone and it's their pack, do it for free. They're gonna try to break it.
But
There's
that's-
always that thing.
No, absolutely. You're not gonna stop that.
That's what I'm
Listen,
saying. But
listen.
money, but cash is different.
Listen,
That's
no,
what-
no, you're look,
You
look,
can make
look.
counterfeit cash.
Listen.
I get that, but I mean,
do you believe people are trying to take your money every day?
probably yeah.
That's
Yeah,
the same thing
yeah.
you just said. Same thing.
So look,
It's always.
we don't control the monetary system, right? So we don't control the monetary system. Monetary systems, what was it? The Federal Reserve Bank,
Reserve.
right?
Yeah.
I don't even know who are the founding banks, right? So, but we utilize that system,
Right.
and my submission is that look, there's something evolving here, not just in this country but worldwide, and it's not slowing down.
No, I got that.
It's building up and building up,
bigger
and
and
if we
bigger.
do not at least learn and understand what it is and how we can utilize it to our benefit, then we're going to be again left behind, and we might be saying, "Oh, nobody included us," and that's not true. And
Well,
in fact, this I can tell you this: I started investing in crypto like actively, I want to say 2018, and I can tell you this is probably one of the first opportunities in my lifetime that I see where people could have front run the banks. For example, when COVID hit, I want to say in about April or so, I think Bitcoin had dropped to like $3,000, right? And
Per what?
per coin. And now It's
coin equals what?
$3,000, right?
Okay.
I got a buddy of mine who bought it for like maybe
sounds
about
good.
That's like cocaine money.
no
No. You have no
but-
idea
but hold on.
of the level it went to.
But it went as high as to what, $108,000
Per coin.
per coin.
And a coin
Per
equals
coin.
$1.
No,
Well, no, it's not. It's not
yeah,
like that.
yeah. So, in order for you to buy, and I'll
I
give
got
you
$1.
an
I'm
accurate,
gonna buy a Bitcoin.
I'll
during the
give you an
time that
accurate
it's
figure
over.
right now,
How much?
right?
It's 3,000.
I'll give you an
The Bitcoin
accurate
was
filler.
3,000.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
All right.
3,000.
So right now,
No, it's for one unit.
Hold on.
I'm
Hold
checking a
on.
live
Let's stop.
feed on Bitcoin. Right now, it's $79,000. So if you wanted to buy one Bitcoin, right, a whole Bitcoin, it would be 79,000.
Right.
Right.
But they sell fractional shares.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So
Okay.
what I'm saying is, if I got $1, how much
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin can I get for that $1?
I would have to do the calculate, but I can give you a live calculation. Back in I want to say about September 2020, I did an experiment, right, on Robinhood. I took $5 and I bought $5 in Bitcoin at that time. That $5,
How much
I'm going to tell you
Bitcoin
how
was that?
I'm going to
At that
give
time,
I'm going to give you the exact. I'm going to look right now and give you the exact numbers, right? So I got to find my Robinhood first. Hold on a second. Yeah, so the $5 turned out to be, I think right now it's probably worth maybe about 40 something
What
dollars.
was it then when you opened up the account? When you put-
Bitcoin was $10,000 at the time.
So you got $5 worth of that.
Yeah.
How much was
Yeah.
that?
Okay, so it was 0.00046.
That's the rate.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Now. I
Right,
got it.
right.
All right.
So, and that was Bitcoin was about $10,000. That $5 now is worth $36. So what does that tell me? It tells me that it's
very volatile.
beating inflation. No, that's what it tells me because my $5 could not,
That's a fact.
right? My $5 could not reach $36 sitting in the bank, right?
$36, 36,000
Maybe.
or
Maybe.
$36. So
$36.
in other words,
300 years,
in other
maybe.
words, and by the way, I'm not suggesting that anybody invest into anything, right? This is
Sure,
just
sure.
my experience. So in other words, $5, the $5 in September 2020 is now worth $36. So even though Bitcoin had
Now I got
jumped
you.
and
I
went
got
back
you.
down, right?
got you.
It's still over the course of years, it's still beating inflation, right? And with everything that's going on right now, we could expect some more inflation happening with this the possible tariffs and all of this stuff, right? So my position for me is, wait a minute, if this thing is beating inflation, it's better for me to have my saving in this particular asset class rather than
In a
right
In the bank.
in the bank, right? It makes logical sense for me.
Sure.
Right?
So
Based
what,
upon-
what we're going to have to do, we're going to have to leave it there because obviously you could probably give like a YouTube course in
yeah, you definitely ready
cryptocurrency.
to go.
And I
Okay.
think before we leave, we probably want to get your number just so we can become knowledgeable about what you're
Right.
talking about. So I do want to thank you guys today for coming. You've been here all afternoon. I have enjoyed the conversation tremendously. You guys
as we
are
did, yeah.
really a breath of fresh air. And I know you can keep talking after the cameras stop rolling, but maybe folks will exchange numbers just to kind of keep in touch. But I think all the topics that we talked about were hugely important, and I think that people listening will benefit from things that they've heard. So on that note, I want to say thank you guys again, and
How do we find
We-
the podcast?
so I'm going to let you know that. I'm going to send you the link.
I mean, not just this episode. I mean,
No,
in
when I send you the
general.
link, you're
Okay.
gonna like and subscribe, which is what I always tell the audience. Once you like and subscribe, then you will be notified when there's a new episode.
So nice.
Yes. So
Like and subscribe, everyone.
yes, like and subscribe. So once the cameras stop rolling, then we can talk a little further about other things. We went on probably longer than anybody thought we would, but the topics were so current and important for us to discuss, and at least for you to hear, that I just hope that you will continue to like and subscribe, and that we will hopefully see you at the next episode. And thanks for watching For a Brother's Ear.
Yay.